You. How's everyone doing? Right, so we're back. You go and spoilers are back. It's been a number of months since we've actually been able to do this. Um, Mostly because of me. It's been a very, very busy year, and I've had to focus a bit on work, life, that kind of thing. I've been more exhausted in general. There've been a lot of events. Comic Cons are back, and that's been awesome. Um, been like premieres, a number of movie premieres, not just Marvel but others as well. And it's been great, but it means a lot of work and a lot of time that I can't spend doing this. So I would like to get back to doing this a lot more, because there's been a lot of content, a lot of things to talk about. There's been a heck load of new content, which has made it also difficult to keep up. So because of that, what we're going to try to do this time is a little bit of a summary, right? Phase 4 is now over with Wakanda Forever. Phase 4 is now done. So what we would like to do is kind of take a brief walk down memory lane and think about what has come before, and give our thoughts on what they were, since you haven't heard most of our thoughts except for Moon Knight, probably, and to do some kind of ranking. That's what we're going to attempt to do. So please do put comments, give your thoughts. If you disagree, please shout it out. If you agree, please shout it out, and let us know your thoughts. So with that done, we're going to add our Fantastic Four. We're gonna come back now, like off from Instagram, where we used to be. Now we're here. This is our level up. This is our glow up. We could do one like this earlier this year, but we didn't have this group of four, so this counts as our first time. So welcome, guys. How you guys doing?
Hi.
Hello. So
not too bad.
Say again.
All good.
All good. So, like usually, what we would have done in the past is kind of like an introduction for everyone, and we stopped doing the introductions because people they know who we are. But since this is a new platform, and it's been a while, I'm pretty sure people have forgotten who some of us are. Some of us have been less than active on social media, just giant cosplays. Brian. So it'll be good to do some introductions again. So let's start with you,
Alex. Hi, I'm Just Giant Cosplays. Effectively, it's a brand new rebranding of my old cosplay account. But I just do very big characters. I met Hugo through doing Embarco with his Black Panther. And then from there, it's just been anyone over 6'5" in a group has most likely been on my list or called upon. So I'm not like huge on Instagram at the moment, because again, I'm just getting back into it. But hopefully, with cons done up again and more costumes in the pipeline, I'll jump back on that bandwagon.
Outstanding. Yeah, it's actually quite nice. That the first time we met was for M'Baku and T'Challa, and then given Wakanda Forever, I feel like we haven't really made use of the fact that we do these cosplays, because there are some excellent quotes, excellent videos we could probably
we've barely touched any of them,
right?
mostly because if we've ever done it at a con, we just haven't moved for for like hours at a time.
Exactly. So that's awesome. So welcome, Alex, Just Giant Cosplays, and let's go to Ryan now. Ryan, hello.
Hey,
Mr. Anderson, welcome back.
So I'm Remnant Creates on Instagram, which has not had a post in over a year, I think. Yeah. Unfortunately, social media is time consuming, and I find it boring. But yeah, I once upon a time was known mostly for Bucky, like Winter Soldier cosplays, back when he had long hair, and a decent arm. Less of that now. So most recent cosplay was actually Moon Knight. So that was a while back now.
Yeah.
And now I branch out from Marvel stuff where I can, to be honest. Mainly because, spoilers, I'm not a huge fan of Phase 4 so far. So, yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. No, honestly, I think it's actually quite refreshing. In May, that was the first time I didn't do any Marvel cosplay for a whole MCM Comic Con, and it's kind of refreshing doing that, and kind of for some reason it's not like there's pressure from somewhere, but I just feel less shackled for some reason. Yeah. But your Moon Knight was really, really good, and I loved.
My Moon Knight was passable for the amount of time that I had to put it together.
Are you suggesting that I didn't give enough time for you to prepare?
I'm suggesting that you never give enough time.
That never happened, surely.
However, the fact that Zoe managed to get Khonshu together for that same amount of time was more impressive than.
I was really, really impressed with that.
Yeah,
Zoe did really well with that. So yeah, welcome Ryan. Welcome back. For those who have been kind of like fanboying or fangirling over him before, it's the Winter Soldier guy, so you can resume fangirling. Going over him, and Paul. Paul's been around. So last year, I think, once when we were trying to get back into the cosplay world side of things, we did a lot of team ups last year. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, well, I post frequently on social media because I don't really have anything else to do, to be honest with you. No social life whatsoever unless it's on media. So yes, I post every couple of days generally. Do lots of Marvel cosplays, but I try and do the odd little niche thing here and there whenever I can, just to change it up a little bit. Yeah, so I'm on there quite regularly, chatting to people and stuff like that, and have loved obviously cons being back and premieres being back to a bit more normal sort of thing. Very, very fortunate always to get to go to these kind of events, which I really enjoy doing. Even with the very last minute notice in some cases. But yeah, it's cool. Very glad to be back. I miss this.
I don't know what you guys are referring to. Like you mentioned
Venom, let there be carnage. That's what I'm going to say, and then that's it.
And then Tom comes in giving you some repeats. I don't appreciate that, Tom. Yeah, no, we have been very fortunate. I think it's been a bit like surprising that premieres actually increased. It's actually escalated from before rather than gone down from since the pandemic. I expected it to go down. So yeah, it's nice that we have the opportunity, even more so that a lot of other people can get opportunities. We've seen lots of other people going to premieres through various different ways, which has been absolutely awesome. So yeah, let's get stuck in because we have a lot to cover. The first thing we're going to do is just a couple of sort of housekeeping-y type things. So earlier on this week, I mentioned that I somehow had hit 15,000 followers. Yay! Woohoo! And because of that hard work that Ryan refuses to do. But no, it's been really nice. Thank you all for that. It's like I just literally just continue to nerd, and if people follow, that's awesome. I was a bit surprised because the algorithm has not been exactly the best this year, so it's been climbing really slowly, so could barely notice. But given this, I'm going to do a giveaway, and fortunately, again, because this happened last time, Get Ready Comics, they're going to help me with this giveaway by giving away something to you. So they have sent me something, and Wakanda Forever thing. So I'll open it. Keep an eye on social media, and there will be a giveaway similar to last time, and it should be really fun and all that. So with that down, I am going to share with you what Phase 4 has actually looked like so far. It's been it's the most controversial, like probably fan splitting phase so far, there was always going to be the, how does Marvel continue after Avengers Endgame, which is still my best cinematic experience I've ever had. I thoroughly enjoyed that time, and so it's always going to be hard to get beyond that. But there've been some good and there's been some not so good. There's been some boring. There's been some what the heck. Is this still the same MCU? But so before we get into the individuals, so we have, I think, 8 Disney Plus TV shows, and that's another thing to note. It's the first time that Marvel have been doing a Disney Plus like TV shows, and 7 movies, I believe. I'm not counting the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, which is yet to come. Maybe they'll call that as part of Phase 4. I don't know, but yeah, there's been a lot of content in 2 years, and to the point where I think for the first time, even diehard Marvel fans have found it difficult to keep up with what's going on. So we'll just start with general, without digging into specifics, general thoughts on Phase 4. Alex, let's start with you. What are your general thoughts about Phase 4?
I mean, considering that I completely forgot half of the things that started Phase 4 are part of Phase 4, I would say very strong start, really solid close, very muddy middle.
That's really good. That's actually a really good summary.
That's really kind of how I would see it. But I think also that comes down to the TV and like the weekly viewings and stuff, because you're either in one or two camps, well, one or three camps. You either watch it weekly, binge it at the end, or you don't watch it at all. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's really accurate, and probably feels the same for me as well. In terms of mud in the middle. If you were thinking about it with just the movies, how does it feel to you?
With just the movies, I would say we've got 6, 7 movies in total.
Yeah.
So I would say a good 50-50 split of very much enjoyed to very forgettable, for me at least, or at least like wouldn't watch again. Yeah,
absolutely.
And one that I wish I hadn't seen.
Remember that.
Yeah.
So that when we get to it, because I'd love to know that one. I feel like I might know, but Paul, how about yourself? Your general feelings on Phase 4? Oh, sorry. I think you were talking, and I may have muted you earlier. Go ahead. Sorry. Start again.
Yeah, I think coming off of like Endgame, I guess the idea possibly was just to sort of like go as big as they can and throw out as much content as they can, and introduce as many new characters as they can. And in some ways, it's definitely been very positive, and in other ways, it hasn't been. As Alex said, pretty strong start, very strong finish, and there's a lot in between that just didn't really seem to work for a lot of people. And it's a shame, really, because there is that one movie which I'm sure we'll get to that I kind of wish I hadn't watched, or I kind of wish didn't exist, to be honest with you. But everything else, I'm still enough of a Marvel fan that I can enjoy all of them again on repeat watches. Some less than others, certainly, but I can still watch them all again, and they still have positives, and I've said this quite a few times. They are trying to do new things, and that's good. It doesn't always work, and that's what I need to look at. And you don't want to just see the same superhero movie again and again and again with the same characters again and again and again. They're introducing all this new bunch of people, and we're getting some very, very interesting characters. But I think they could possibly have tried to limit the amount of stuff that they try to do in this phase, and concentrate on quality. Quality rather than quantity.
Yeah, I think it's really important, actually, the fact that there is still some good here, but the biggest one that you mentioned is that they were doing things differently. I really appreciate that, and I don't want them to stop that, to stop trying to be completely different, to tapping into different cultures. I mean, this is the first time that we tapped into what was it? We've got the Egyptian culture, Pakistani, Asian culture, besides going back to Wakanda Forever and stuff like that. Right? Those are big positives. And being completely different. I remember there was a time we observed. Sorry, I'm just going to pause it. There's a time that we observed, I think last year, that each series, at least Disney Plus series, and some movies, besides Black Widow at the time, had their own, seemed like they had their own identity. They weren't like the normal cookie cutter Marvel look and feel kind of thing. And that was, and I enjoyed that. And that was one good thing. So yeah, it's good to know that there are like some good things from that. So Ryan, what thoughts on Phase 4, right?
Right. So I don't know how familiar anyone watching or any of you guys are with a show called Supernatural. But Supernatural had a story that was planned out from the beginning to run from seasons 1 to seasons 5.
Yeah.
Right.
But then when they got to the finale of season 5, the showrunners decided we like money more than we like integrity. And so they kept going for another 8 seasons.
Yeah. It's like almost 10 years, isn't it?
Yeah, something like that. And not so much towards the end, they started sort of self-writing. But in seasons 6, 7, 8, especially, it felt like the story didn't know where the fuck it was going.
Yeah.
Right.
Phase 4 feels like that following Endgame, where it feels like they had a story from Incredible
Iron
Hulk
Man,
Iron Man
Yeah.
to Endgame.
Yeah.
And afterwards, they're like, well, fuck, that's our story. What are we going to do now? We'll just throw everything at the wall and see what sticks and see what people like and see what people don't like.
Yeah.
And fuck it to quality. Who cares? Because we like money more than we like integrity.
Yeah.
And so there are hits in Phase 4 that I genuinely enjoyed. But I feel like the amount of shit that was also scattered throughout Phase 4 means that I wouldn't have, looking back on it now, I don't feel like anything would have really been lost in the MCU had Phase 4 not existed.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
We'll see how that kind of progresses in terms of like overall story. Like in terms of like overarching story, I feel like Phase 4 is going to be one of those things where you can kind of lift it out and put it to one side and the story still sort of makes sense.
Yeah.
Because this is them trying to find their ground for what their story is going to be going forwards rather than having a concrete plan for it.
Finding the next step.
Yeah, exactly. It feels like we're sort of kind of getting there now, but we'll see.
Yeah. It's funny, actually. What you were saying about Phase 4 being that kind of like it can literally, this replaceable kind of thing. You can literally take out and no one will lose anything. I almost feel like there are two things. First of all, I'll address the business and money thing because I think that's very true. I feel like do you remember when we were first talking about Endgame and how you go forward after that? And I was saying that I feel like the only way you can go forward is by getting worse, almost. Like dropping just. Sorry, Paul. Remember if you're saying something, remember to unmute yourself. Sometimes I might mute you if there's echo. Yeah, I've unmuted you now. Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah. You're gonna say. Yeah, I thought you were saying something.
I just said mission accomplished.
Oh right, yeah. Well, exactly. It's like I almost feel like there is something deliberate in dropping dropping some, I don't know, I want to say dropping standards, because I don't think that's what that's not where they're intending, but the expectations, the scope, and things like that. Some people called this the grief saga, because everyone's dealing with some kind of grief and things like that. Strangely enough, those are the parts I enjoyed the most, because they were kind of more real. But the money-wise, so we know that Bob Chapek took over Disney from Bob Iger, right? And Bob Iger was more, he gave power to the creatives a lot more. And there was one incident which said so much for me. And it was, I think it was the US premiere of Doctor Strange. And someone was interviewing Kevin Feige. And first of all, we all know that, like, since Chapek took over, we've had issues with contracts for Scarlett Johansson and all that whole suing thing, the crap that Disney were saying in response to her and things like that. There's been all that kind of thing. And there have been several other issues. I think there was some with Shang-Chi as well, with Simu Liu. But they're more geared, he's more geared towards money, and he has done certain things business-wise that shows that. When Kevin Feige was interviewed, it's like, oh, what can we expect from Doctor Strange? He was trying not to be, but he looked visibly pissed off, and it's like, well, you know, the trailers have given too much anyway, so like I don't want to go into it kind of more, showing that he no longer has the control that he had over marketing and things, because they want to put like bums in seats and, you know, the money out. And I do definitely feel that the money thing, give me money, has kind of superseded others, which is unfortunate. But yeah, and I hope, like you, I hope that things are going to change for the better, and that this is just a forgettable phase, despite the things that I've enjoyed from it. But what we'll do is, let's see, how are we doing time-wise? Okay, we're good. Right, so we're going to do kind of a quick fire round through some of these series. Like I say, those who are watching online, feel free to jump in with your thoughts and things like that. So, it's all unintended. Okay, Disney TV series. Okay, so what I need to do is, as we go along, think of the scores that you would give them, and it's relative to you. So it doesn't matter what, say, Alex considers a 5 and what is the same as what Paul considers a 7, for example. Just be consistent within your own line, right? So it's not really about the absolute value, it's more about the relative value. So as we go along, think of your scores as you talk about it. I'm going to give each person. We'll start with kind of a 2 minutes opener on these. We're going to go for the
one clarifying point.
Go for it.
Are we talking score within the MCU, or are we talking score within like film and television? Because those are two very different scores.
Is it?
Because none of these, in my opinion, can be rated in line with like the Prestige, in my opinion. So, proportionally, my scores would be
ridiculously low.
No, we can't. Yeah, we can't use we can't use stuff like the Prestige to even get close.
Okay, cool.
I would say MCU scores, and then like general entertainment from it, because even if you think that something's bad, because there are a few things here which I would say is bad, but I still enjoyed it to some level.
So taking it from that point of view, as an example, when obviously we're not covering Black Adam, but I saw Black Adam very recently. I had fun with it. It's like a Fast and Furious movie, as far as I'm concerned. I say to people, it's a rubbish movie if I was to compare it to, you know, the Prestige type thing that you're talking about. But I had bonkers fun, and I would watch again in the cinema.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say similar.
Yeah. I just had so much fun. I couldn't believe I was laughing at it. It was like my reactions to Fast and Furious stuff, where stuff happens. It's so stupid but so awesome, and it makes me happy. Right? So So think about your enjoyment kind of in general. It might be because something was deep. It might be because something was just frivolous.
Okay.
So we'll start with the Queen herself in WandaVision. So we're going through the TV series first. So WandaVision, 2 minutes thoughts, good or bad. Paul, go.
I don't know if you keep on automatically muting me, but I keep on getting muted.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. When someone else is
because
talking, I do that. When someone else is talking, there's like an echo that goes round. So that's why I do it.
Okay.
So,
Even though I'm just sitting here not saying anything.
Sorry?
Even though I'm just sitting here completely silently, there's no echo.
Audio.
Okay, cool. It's just I can't really join in the conversation when I'm constantly being muted, but that's cool. If it's then keep doing it, obviously. WandaVision was awesome. I really didn't. I thought the last episode let it down just a tiny little bit. But it is the Queen, as you say. It was the one that got us all involved in this. Which is it's fantastic. Just alone for that, the fact that it started the lives. But yeah, it was. I really missed that kind of like every week wondering what the heck is going on. I don't think any other series has really. Loki came close a couple of times, but I don't think any other series has done quite as good as that. And it was such a unique, brilliantly done property. Unfortunately, slightly marred by the Doctor Strange movie, but yeah, it was fantastic. It's a solid 9 out of 10.
9 for you. Nice. And Alex?
I would say that WandaVision for me is a very solid 8 as a starting out the gate from Endgame, where we were all kind of questioning what was going to come out of it. I would say that Elizabeth Olsen is fantastic as Wanda. I think Paul Bettany is brilliant as Vision. The chemistry they have together was really fun to watch. I've made no qualms about my dislike for the children in Multiverse, but I think that they were okay in WandaVision. So that's like that's very much not a kids thing. That's a direction thing, or at least like an intent thing. But I do think the WandaVision had a very special thing of, because no one knew what to expect, it could kind of do whatever it wanted. And I think the showrunners had a much more solid idea about what they wanted to do from that series just alone. And with Wanda in particular, they knew we can kind of go a bit more crazy to the wall in terms of like doing something different for quote unquote TV, even though it's a streaming service, it's still TV. And I think that was one of its biggest strengths. And I think it was quite faithful to both elements of the comics and the comic characters, whilst also staying true to the MCU versions of those characters. And I think we were all very much looking forward. I genuinely do not think that Multiverse of Madness would have had the hype it had WandaVision not set up certain elements beforehand. Or at least it would have had more questions that they need to be asked. So yeah, very, very solid 8 out of 10 for me. Haven't watched it since in its entirety, but I've always watched clips of it through and through, just like favorite moments, that kind of stuff.
Right. Awesome. Good stuff. Ryan?
Yeah, I think I'd agree with an 8 out of 10. I think it was probably still the strongest of the shows. Definitely a strong kind of pitch for D+ shows. Unfortunately, nothing else has really lived up to the standard that it's set. But like Paul mentioned, even that standard has been marred by bad practices moving forwards. So it's a difficult one. It is let down by the last episode, again, as Paul said, because it turns into typical Marvel CGI boss battle. But the whole Quicksilver thing still leaves a bad taste in my mouth. But aside from that, I surprisingly didn't mind the kids in WandaVision. Multiverse is another thing entirely.
That's what I mean.
But yeah, it was strong. It was a strong start, but they were playing very much off of the cliffhanger endings and the mystery tropes and all that kind of stuff, which is a bit of a cheat in storytelling. Like they literally did the fucking, oh, he opens the door and who's there? Suddenly cliffhanger. But yeah, aside from little cheap gimmicky bits like that, they had a Malcolm in the Middle episode, so it wins.
So you enjoyed that. I'm gonna give, for me, I'm giving this I'm now allowing halves. I'm giving this 9.5. This is one of my favorite shows. I've rewatched the whole entire thing a number of times now, because I keep finding more things, and I just find that this was an difference between this and a lot of the other shows and movies is that it seemed meticulously planned. Like they really looked at every detail to see what's going to work, what's not going to work, what should we allow, what should we not allow in. I even like the fact that we were trolled cameo wise with things like it made sense, and for me it was almost like those Marvel fanboys, we're gonna drag you out. We're gonna show you for what you are. And I don't know. I kind of, even though the one that I got caught out on was the Reed thing, I was so sure about it, and then I was sort of disappointed, but I liked the fact that they caught me out with that. It's a weird kind of feeling. I'm with the last episode, I was actually okay with. Yes, it had to end somehow, but I was okay that we had a bit of that, given the rest of the season wasn't really those kind of that kind of action thing. But mostly it was Vision that made me really love that, the library fight, which ended up being a discussion, which is cool. But yeah, so that's 9.5. So that's pretty good scores there. Let's jump on to the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So Paul, let's start with yourself.
Yeah, gosh, that's a difficult one to rate because, as we've said before, it's kind of like my love of it and whether or not it's actually a good show that you'd want to watch again and again and again. I think WandaVision you can watch, or you'd want to watch like the whole way through. You could watch every other episode sort of thing, or favorite episodes, I should say, sorry. But you'd want to watch it all the way through. Whereas Falcon and Soldier, I've watched several episodes, and I've said this before multiple times, just because I love them so much, mostly because they were heavily Bucky orientated. Again, let down by the ending. I'm annoyed that Bucky was sort of like left out of his own show, but you can't deny that Sam turning up as Captain America wasn't absolutely awesome TV. So I don't know, it's a really hard one to rate for me. I would probably have to drop it down to maybe a 7. The 7 being how much I enjoyed quite a lot of aspects to it, but I can't genuinely say it's a really good series that I'd want to watch through all the way through again and again and again. There are definitely things that I wish they'd done differently. So yeah, I'd probably go with a 7.
Yeah, that sounds fair. Let's jump to Ryan.
Yeah, I would probably give it 6. I think, like, culturally, it carried a lot of weight for a lot of people. I obviously am not part of the kind of demographic that it was like trying to hit really hard with those kind of messages and stuff. I appreciated them, but it wasn't for me. So yeah, like the storytelling overall for the show was mostly good, let down by really inconsequential villains that really weren't that likable at all. Like Paul said, Bucky was a C-tier character in his own show, which is less than ideal. But I liked the kind of bromance that they started like kicking off with the two of them. Yeah, it's a difficult one. I haven't gone back and rewatched it, so a lot of my like feelings on it are based entirely on like my memory of it at the time. And at the time, I enjoyed it, but that's because I was coming off of the high of the previous show.
Yeah.
Where I was like going into it with the expectation it was going to be really, really good. And so every week I was looking for every single positive and like naysaying every single negative. And so that's kind of tarred it a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go over 6
Yeah.
just to leave room for the other stuff that's coming up.
Like that. So I'll go in next for this one. Yeah, this is difficult. Now, like you said, the things that they've addressed from a racial point of view definitely elevates it for me, and it's like they came in right at the end and sort of rescued it a bit for me with some of the things that they addressed, the hard-hitting messages with the previous super soldier. His name is escaping me now. Patriots
not Elijah. It's I know, we all know who you're talking about. It's the old dude. Yeah.
That was great. That was hard hitting, and even right at the very end, revisiting that, like, it was really kind of emotional for me and stuff. And seeing, Sam in all his splendor in that suit, it was so, because they left a sweet taste in my mouth right at the end. I'm tempted to kind of go for like a 7.5, but the reason I'm probably going to bring it back down to 7 is that rewatchability thing. As much as I did enjoy certain aspects of it, and like I said, they address things in race that I haven't seen other superhero, including Black Panther, haven't seen them address. It wasn't so much that I've gone back, except to find references when I'm doing cosplay videos. Like, and even then, I'm looking at very specific scenes. I haven't gone back and watched it, so I'm going to give it a 7 as well. Alex?
I mean, not really much more to add. I think that the Falcon and Winter Soldier is effectively a very solid 6. I would say it would be a very easy 5 if it didn't actually touch on a lot of things which were important to touch on, and it did it well. I think there's a lot of stuff there which is very, very strong, and just a lot of stuff that I wish had been dived into deeper. I think that US Agent would have been fine as an antagonist by itself and have everything else be the issue. I don't really think the whole weird redhead albino terrorist girl was necessary stuff. I do think that US Agent would have been fine by himself. I do think a lot of Bucky and Sam is what makes that show work, similar to the way that Paul and Elizabeth have like really good chemistry. Like Anthony Mackie and Sebastian Stan have that same kind of chemistry, which you can't really, like, it's very easy to write for, which is why a lot of the scenes with the two of them are just very fun to watch. I think that everything with the suit at the end is what I was expecting from that kind of finale, and it worked quite well. Whereas the WandaVision one, I felt worked a bit too extra. I think this one was a nice element of both what the show was building up to and what I expected. I love all of the Russo movies pretty much equally in terms of the MCU ones, and I think that this pitter patters enough to be within the same kind of series. Like, if I was going to watch all the Russo movies and put this in, I don't think it would be too out of place, and I think it's quite strong on that level. But yeah, just like everyone always says that a hero is only as good as the strongest villain, and I think that they had a very strong anti-hero that could have been a good antagonist, but they went with just a very bland, basic terrorist group, which really brought the whole show down as a whole, because you just don't really care about what they end up doing. Like when your heart is more about watching Sam and Bucky sit opposite each other doing therapy than it is this woman blowing up like a children's hospital, you know that like the emphasis is either in the wrong place or you just don't care about the villain enough.
Yeah, I hear that. It's by the way, Tom reminded us, Isaiah Bradley.
Yeah.
That's the guy we were forgetting. Yeah, honestly, if there was a really good, effective villain, I think it would have elevated it, despite even all the other things that we've said. Like, if there was a strong villain, we've just been. I kind of wish Zemo was the actual villain. In that way, then it may have been.
But yeah, no, actually, no, that works really well. I think that if Zemo was the head behind it and US Agent was like the main, and because I think it also, the way they were doing it in terms of like what's the anti-Captain America, and also this is also in a world where maybe my timing is off, but this is also in a time where like we had Invincible and the boys being like, what's the anti-Superman?
Yeah,
like it would have fit so well in that world where people were obviously reacting well to it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely agreed. So right, okay, so we've got I'm also taking in Tom's scores now because he's now given scores for the first two. So now we're on to Loki. This should be another interesting one. So we're going to come back to you, Alex. Let's start with you again for Loki.
Loki, genuinely, it's not that I disliked it. I think I had a lot of fun watching it once, but I doubt I would ever go back to it for a sit down again. I think if I'm balancing, like if I'm giving WandaVision a solid 8 and I'm giving Falcon and Winter Soldier a solid 6, I would say that this is probably 6 leaning 7 in the sense that I'd more likely watch this than I would Falcon again.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of really fun stuff in it. Again, I think Tom Hiddleston's very good in the role. I think a lot of it was not pandering, but it definitely was catered to the Tumblr kind of GIF army of Hiddleston fangirls to have like scenes and stuff. I did like the introduction of Sylvie. I know that Sylvie's been a bit of a point of contention for a few things. I like the idea of the TVA. The show, the whole show is like in its entirety is a very weird concept, which I think was a nice way of going from WandaVision to something else completely different. I probably would give it a 7 as well, purely for I think it's out of the 3, is probably my favorite finale.
Yeah.
Kind of compared to like the action and stuff, because even though it is quite an action-packed finale, I would say the last 2 or 3 episodes are quite fun, especially with Richard E. Grant and the other Lokis, and then He Who Remains and that kind of stuff. And I'm looking forward to season 2.
Yeah,
if I'm correct in terms of what the other, like I think the only other one that has a season finale, or sorry, a second season is What If. So out of those ones, and Moon Knight, I think out of those 3, I think Loki season 2 is the one I'm probably going to be watching the most. So yeah, solid 7. Interesting multiverse opening stuff. That's kind of where it kind of sits for me. I genuinely don't remember much else apart from just having fun with it.
Yeah, the last 3 episodes, it needed those.
Yes,
it really needed those. There.
Yes, 100%.
Ryan, let's jump to you.
Again, me and Alex are just gonna sit here fucking batting scores backwards and forwards. 7 for me as well. I thoroughly enjoyed Loki, but I feel like it meandered too much in the middle. I enjoyed kind of the questions it was asking more so than I think I enjoyed the way that it was asking those questions. I really enjoyed the kind of whimsy and frivolity of kind of how the TVA were set up and like shown, but then there were all of these things like the TVA with this all-powerful kind of multiverse agency that were then given shock sticks and could somehow protect them. Like there were a bunch of questions like that where if you thought too much about it, it just didn't. It all fell apart. And those things kind of take me out of it quite a bit.
Yeah.
But then we had, like I say, the last 3 episodes, and we had a crap ton of Lokis, which it actually started the slippery slope of whether or not variants looked like other variants, which is only like, it's only gotten worse as they've continued to. Yeah, maybe the multiverse just isn't something that they should have played with, but as a self-contained show, I really enjoyed it. 7 out of 10. Really looking forward to what they do with season 2. Slightly scared of what they're going to do with season 2. And I like Sylvie. I thought she was okay. I thought she was an actual flawed female lead that was realistic in the show that she was in, which we will cover the alternative to that in the next one.
Indeed. I just to jump on that whimsicalness, I liked the feel of the TVA thing. I don't know if it was nostalgia or whatever it happens to be, but I liked the feel of that as well. Let's jump to you, Paul.
Okay, there I am. Yeah, I think Loki was one of my biggest disappointments from what I thought it was going to be, which is possibly not fair to the people involved just because they didn't make it what I thought it was going to be. But I was really on board for the TVA. I was really on board for this almost like detective kind of series. And with this sort of like, Owen Wilson was like this time traveling gumshoe and this crazy partner sort of thing. I was really, really on board for that. And it quickly became something very, very different. I wouldn't have minded Sylvie being introduced in a different show, maybe, or in a different time or something like that. I've got no problem with her as a character, but I just don't think she worked in this because she immediately became the main character. And I thought this was Tom Hiddleston's least good work in the MCU. I thought he was almost annoying at times, if I'm completely honest with you. I really love Tom Hiddleston. I love the character, but I didn't think he was very good in this at all. My rating would be higher if we were basing it on the first episode and the second from last episode, basically because the first episode, I still thought that we were going to get what we were going to get. And we had all these discussions about Infinity Stones and stuff like that and how they could be in the drawer and everything. And I was like, this is amazing. This is fully on board. Is Mobius going to get his jet ski? This is what I'm on. I want, And then that second to last episode was just so fun and desperately needed after the previous episode or two. But yeah, so for that, I think if I was rating it on those two episodes, it would get a higher, because it obviously had like really good production values, obviously had really good actors in it. But as a whole, I think I'd probably give it a 6. I haven't been even remotely tempted to watch it again. It feels almost more like a way to introduce Kang than a TV series is known, right? And that last episode was really good, and I really enjoyed the performance and everything, but it felt like a separate felt like a separate movie, a separate show sort of thing all of a sudden, and not part of what we'd seen before. But then the whole series kind of felt like that to me. The whole series kind of felt like it was very, very disjointed. So yeah, I am looking forward to the second season. I absolutely be watching it every week or whenever it's released. But yeah, I'd probably go a 6 with this.
Yeah, it's so interesting listening to all these opinions because it's so mixed. This show was like, what are you? It was really hard to tell what. If you looked at it from any one of the point of view, the TVA side of things, right, the kind of detective partner kind of thing, right? It doesn't consistently stay on that kind of plane. If you're looking at it as a multiverse thing, it doesn't consistently stay on that plane. If you're looking at, there's no way of looking at it. So for me personally, first of all, I'll just call out that Tom's giving this a 7, and love the last 3 episodes. As did I. Frank says enjoyed Loki, felt a bit like Ticker. Is that another show or something? You guys know what that is? No?
Ticker.
Frank, tell us what you mean by the Ticker thing. But yeah, for me, I love concept. I love multiversal, concepts, and how can I actually for the first time did a TikTok trying to explain my theory of how timelines, dimensions, and multiverses fit in this, and it was really fun to do, but it's not been realized. Like nothing's been realized because, and that's partly the fault of Phase 4 in general, in terms of introducing so many ideas, nothing which actually attaches together, or at least not much that attaches together. But yeah, I was falling in the middle. I was kind of falling out of love with the show, and then it became a different show. Absolutely, in the last kind of 2 episodes, maybe 3 episodes. I think episode 4 was the strongest, as in within the actual show, because we're dealing with people changing their minds over the TVA, and being shown that they've been blinded and things like that. That was a cool episode, and you weren't sure if being pruned was death or not. You weren't sure what it was, so you had an actual feeling of shock when it happens to Owen Wilson and stuff like that. The last one I enjoyed because of the performances and the consequences for Marvel kind of later on. And given, just like yourselves, I think I've tried to go back and watch this once before, actually, and it didn't take. So it's not a real one for me. So I think I'm giving this a 7. It would have been less if not for He Who Remains, most likely, I think. Okay. Chronicles explain. Sorry, go on, Paul.
No, go on. Explain to the explanation.
So as you said, Loki was fun. It felt like TikTok. That's what you meant. The TikTok with some instant gratifying fan service moments. So it's 7 as well. Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, go on, Paul.
Don't worry, the moment's passed. It's okay. Don't worry.
No worries. Okay, let's head on to that should be fun. What if? And let's start with Ryan.
What if gets a 2 out of 10? It was absolute garbage apart from the finale episodes, and even they weren't great. That'll do.
Sorry, it's too much fun sometimes hearing Ryan's opinion on certain things. So what number would he doesn't even want to give like proper views on it. He just wants to be like, this is garbage, I hate it, and that's it.
It was genuinely dreadful the whole way through. I went into it with such high hopes for the sort of stories that they could tell, and they fumbled the ball without fail every time. The fucking zombie episode was awful. Completely bastardized every character that was in it. The finale was interesting, if nothing else, purely because of the visuals, but even that was like, yeah.
Oh man.
If I'm being really generous, it gets a 3. But genuinely, it gets a 2. It gets a 2.
I've written a 3. I've written we're taking your first
answer. My first answer was a 2. I may have been muted when I said it, but my first answer was a 2.
Oh, that's brilliant. Obviously, we were all like, the 3 of us were expecting it, but it's just always really fun, really fun to hear it. Let's jump onto yourself, Paul.
I keep double pressing. Well, obviously the zombie episode was fantastic. And no, I mean, it wasn't the zombie episode that people wanted, and I do understand that, and hopefully we are still getting that. But as pure fun, I really enjoyed it, and I could still watch that episode again. I could watch that episode again and again. I really, really could. I thought it was really, really enjoyable. And the Captain Carter, which has been, I know, a little bit marred in a way again by Doctor Strange. I'm really sorry to keep bringing that up, but I don't know. I really, really loved that episode when it first came out, and I talked about it an awful lot. Again, 2 Bucky episodes. I can't help it. Bucky's in something. It immediately elevates it, in my opinion. Maybe wrongly. I don't know. The rest of them, I can't even remember. I mean, the Doctor Strange one, I know you all loved and thought it was edgy and cool and whatever. But again, Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. It should have been the What If comic from when I was a kid, sort of thing, which I absolutely loved reading. I was so excited when I found a new issue of What If. They weren't all brilliant, but generally they were fantastic. And why they decided to do this long cohesive story rather than just individual stories, I just don't understand. So yeah, I mean, I thought the animation was kind of cool. I'll go above Ryan and say 3, but that's as best as I can do, I think, because it was pretty poor.
Oh, I've written a 3 for Ryan. The first answer, Ryan.
I can't go to a 4, I'm afraid, so I'm going to stick with a 3.
It's too late, Ryan. You've been generous. So. Yeah, it's really interesting. One of the things I really like about this is the different opinions that we like. There are some, literally, the episodes that you weren't a fan of were the ones that I was a fan of, and vice versa. And the ones that I hated were the ones that you really loved. And it just shows, for people who, especially when I see people hating them, having weird reactions to people liking or not liking things like online. It's like it's just the most normal thing, but it makes it fun, and it makes it fun to discuss. So yeah, I'll jump in with mine. This was a mixed bag. This one was a test of my Marvel fandom, trying to be positive. I'm generally, was it Alex calls me, was it Eurochrist or something? I generally try to be positive about stuff, try to find something I can enjoy.
You died on the cross with this one, mate.
I did. I got to a point where it's like, yeah, I'm done. I like the character of Captain Carter, but I was bored because it was basically a retread of the first Avenger. So, you know, it's like the T'Challa one had emotional connections for me. I liked seeing Chadwick Boseman's last hurrah, so to speak, and obviously it made him to be like the good guy, the great guy. So I was fine with that. I had fun with that. I was done in general after that. The zombie one made me rant as much as I do about the Flash, and we'll have fun discussions forever about this ball. For me, the only thing that I really enjoyed was the Doctor Strange one, and because of that, I enjoyed the finale kind of episodes, and the way that went. There were some some consistency things I was a bit confused about, but in general, the finale was quite cool. I like the Doctor Strange one. It is edgy. It is true. It's like it's kind of hopeless, but I have a thing about consequences going in a particular direction, meaning something. Consequences meaning something, and I felt like it went to that place without needing to without doing the Disney thing of like, oh, but everything actually turned out okay. There's a similar thing in Wakanda Forever, which we'll come to. So having said all that, my score, there's not enough. I haven't gone back to watch these things, and I can't see myself even going back. I can't see the ones that I said that I enjoyed. I haven't gone back to watch those, and it's only 20 minutes. So I'm gonna have to put this one down as a 3 myself. Alex.
What If is a very bizarre one, I think, for all of us. I think for me, if we're going purely on like MCU kind of enjoyment, stuff like that, I'd probably put it kind of similar to Ryan. I'd probably put it as a 2, maybe a 3 with just the final 2 episodes, because I did enjoy the concept of it. Outside, and I know we said we weren't going to do like outside of enjoy like the MCU stuff, but I think for this one I kind of have to just a little bit, in the sense of the concept it was initially going to be of like every episode was going to have a different art style, a different self-contained story, like all these very effectively, this was like the creative outlet of, we're already throwing everything at the window. Let's throw the really weird shit at the window and see if that sticks too. Like that was the safety net they had with this. I think this was just such a huge, colossal waste of an opportunity for them. And I think it's disappointing, because I personally think that the storyline of What If Ultron had got what he wanted could have been the What If show in its entirety. And I think it would have also worked really well as a, what's the word looking for? As like a resurgence of the Ultron character, because Age of Ultron doesn't work well in a lot of people's mind, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think the biggest problem that What If has is that it kind of shits all over other parts of the MCU, just in terms of like giving certain characteristics, like the whole concept of, yes, like funny, Ultron can laser Thanos in one shot, but then since then we've also seen Thanos being defeated in like flashbacks or alternate realities and stuff. And then when you go back to watching Endgame and you see Doctor Strange like going like, oh, there's only one that we win, and I'm like, well, bitch, you didn't watch all the fucking options, because I like there's different options here where we've seen it go. I love I think what's really upsetting is I love the designs of a lot of characters. Like I kind of like the Captain Carter look, and obviously from a cosplay perspective, we know so many fantastic cosplayers who've done really fantastic versions of it. I was so excited to potentially do Steve in the mech suit with some of my friends who do Captain Peggy. I love the Ultron Vision look and armor. I think T'Challa Star-Lord is a great design. I think there's a lot. Even the Watcher, like the Watcher is a very weird character, but his design is actually quite good. Jeffrey Wright, perfect voice. There was so much for it. It like effectively this is kind of like The Producers, the musical, like the old like Mel Brooks show, where it's like everything was here, but it's like, where did you go wrong? Or like, how did you get all of this so wrong when you had all of it quite literally on a silver platter to you? So like, if we're going outside the MCU, I'd probably give this more of a 1 because I hate shows that have like a real loss of opportunity. But in terms of MCU stuff, I can watch it again. Like I've watched the Ultron Watcher fight scene and that kind of fun thing on YouTube in clips, like every now and again. I think the Thor episode is a fucking weird one. Like it's a weird one to watch back, and I just remember being like, why is this an episode that they've dedicated to?
It's weirdly not his worst outing now.
True.
Whose?
True.
Not whose worst outing?
Thor's.
Oh my word.
But yeah, she just really lost opportunity, and there was so much to it. And I think Paul kind of hit the nail on the head of like the What If comics. It's like it reminds me of when Suicide Squad was being released, and everyone was like, why don't you just do Assault on Arkham as a live action movie? It's like, why don't you just do What If comics as animated things for people who aren't familiar with the story? Like you have it quite literally on paper, just put it to screen and get the actors and stuff into it, and they could have had they could have had a real sleeper hit, but they dropped the ball on pretty much every juggle that it became just a mess. And I remember like talking about it with you guys and like our progressive enjoyment like going down. And like I think past episodes, I think maybe before the Doctor Strange one, every session we had was just like, why are we watching this? Like genuinely, why are we watching this? And the Doctor Strange one was good. But then we saw Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness do pretty much the exact same storyline. Of like
they also had a really weird hang up about like destroying Tony Stark's legacy.
I was waiting to
that's what I mean in terms of like it's shitting over other parts of the MCU, and also like the weird kind of like, oh, let's prove to the fanboys who could win in a fight between Thor and Captain Marvel, and it's like, well, no one's really asking that apart from the Redditor fuckboys.
It's the thing that stuck in my head from what you're saying was that thing about Ultron, because I think one of the reasons that I found it intriguing those last couple of episodes is I enjoyed Age of Ultron. I really did. But we all know the kind of thing that Ultron is capable of. And like apocalyptic kind of world is inevitable when Ultron is involved.
That's exactly it.
Destroys things. He did like it's right. So it was kind of an opportunity to go there. And I kind of wish there was a bit more of that.
This Ultron wouldn't have worked as an Age of Ultron villain. But the concept of this Ultron is very much accurate to what Ultron as a character kind of can do, even in the confines of the MCU. And again, obviously, we know what Vision is capable of and that kind of stuff. So mixing the two of them together worked really well. And it was great listening to the voice. It was all that stuff. And I loved the multiversal fight. I thought it was really cool. Really dynamic. And it
was amazing.
Yeah, it's the stuff that only works in animation. And if they had done that as its own story, it would have been fine. I think they leaned too heavy into this multiversal like introduction, because obviously Loki introduced it, and What If was like, we've told you about multiverse, here's what it is.
Here's all the interesting enough, because Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness had that visual, right, in terms of breaking through multiverses, the whole glass kind of thing. And I feel like, I know we're slightly jumping the gun, I feel like people were hoping that would be a bit more of like what the What If thing was in terms of more multiverse stuff, and that's what they were hoping for. But okay, we'll move on. We spent a bit of time there. Sorry, Alex. So is that 3 that you ended up with?
I'm giving it a 2. I'm giving it a 2, but I would give it a 1 for just personal disappointment.
And don't worry, Ryan, yours is down as a 2. Tom said felt let down by What If. There were some fun moments through the show. hope they expand more on the zombie story and tell the correct story. But there was so much they could have done with it, and it's a 4 for him. So yeah, so you do have a supporter with the zombie storyline, Paul. Sorry, let's jump to Hawkeye. This will be interesting one. I guess I can start this time for this. I think Hawkeye was fortunate that it came after What If for me. My level of expectation had dropped really quite low, and then so I was just kind of like, you know what, just give me anything that's a bit fun, I'll be fine. And it was fun. It was lighthearted. I think I benefited from not caring so much. I don't have particular allegiances to the Hawkeye character. I like him. I love him more in the Avengers as Mightiest Heroes series, but I really do like him. I was surprised at certain elements that worked really well. Everything to do with Clint, I enjoyed, and I forget, yeah, and Kate Bishop, and that was quite nice. But particularly Clint, the way he was dealing with things. Towards the end, it kind of became quite Disneyfied, and I'm not really a big fan of the overly Christmasifying sort of things and everything being all jolly. It seemed like everything that any tension seemed to be lost by the time we came to the end. It was just kind of fun things happening. Like here's the dude with the sword. I forget his name, Swordmaster, something like that. So, I can't remember. He's like you know, I like him and it was fun, but it's like I really liked him earlier on when you couldn't tell what his motive was. By the time you did know what his motive was, he was then just this kind of a fun character. Kate and Hawkeye were generally having fun in that last fight at the end, and then there's a kind of a random 2-minute serious part with Yelena, and the Tracksuit Mafia were interesting. I didn't quite know how to take them, but they were fun to watch at least. So I had fun. I wasn't like kind of invested. Let's see, relative to the other things that I've voted, I'm going to give this a 6 for me. I'm going to give this a 6. I was tempted to say 5.5. I'm going to give this a 6. I did have fun through it, but I think it's a lot because my expectations had been reduced drastically. So I'm going to now shoot to someone who I know is going to be quite a positive one. Paul.
Yes, I absolutely love this show, and I shouldn't have done. Never been a fan of Hawkeye. I liked him in the comics, which was what I was excited for because they were referencing at least David Aja's run, and I love the visuals from it that they put in there. It was a Hawkeye show, and it was like it's also got a young Hawkeye character as well, a female Hawkeye, which I hate it when they make another character from it's like a younger version, male or female. I don't care which way they do it. It just annoys me when they do that. It shouldn't have worked. It really, really shouldn't have worked for me. But I absolutely loved it. I've just watched it again recently, and it still holds up from beginning to end. It's a perfect, wonderful story. It could easily have been. I watch it like a movie. I don't watch it like a TV series. I get to the end of an episode and I have to want to watch the next episode to find out what happens next, even though I know what happens next. It brought back Kingpin, even though it was a slightly weird version of Kingpin, and I can already see Ryan seething about that. But it still brought back Kingpin, which was like a huge surprise. The whole swordsman thing with them was really cool as well. If you know from the comics, I think Ugo that you might have liked it more if you'd read the comics and had that connection to it. Not that it followed the comics in any way perfectly, but it had a lot of references that I think you would have appreciated more if it was something you'd read before. I loved the trick arrows. I loved the whole build up that there were no trick arrows, and then we got the craziest trick arrows ever. I love Lucky the Pizza Dog. I thought Kate Bishop was incredible. Haley was just perfect in the role. Just that bizarre mix of sort of like being really annoying but extremely captivating at the same time. We got Yelena just completely stealing the scene from every single word that came out of her mouth, which again is another Black Widow, younger character basically, which I shouldn't like, but she was incredible. The whole mac and cheese thing, the conversation in the lift, the ice skating rink fight, the stuff in the tree. There's some really dumb stuff in it. There's some really over the top silly stuff in it, but I think it worked perfectly within this movie. It never got to the point where I was just like, oh, well, that could never happen. There were a couple of moments that went very, very close to that, but it never really went over into absolute lunacy. It very much felt like it was a part of the MCU. I even didn't mind the kids and the wife, which I've always hated from the previous movies, but somehow it made me think that they were all right. I quite liked the payoff with Mockingbird. I get mixed up. Mockingbird. Payoff with that. It was a bit weird that there was this whole thing about a watch. It didn't really make sense. It was a bit of a a damp squid sort of thing, but even if it couldn't ruin my enjoyment of it. I really don't want to give it a 10 because that seems like it's way too much for this show. But I mean, it had the Avengers musical in it as well, which is still stuck in my head right now. I can sing it.
Oh no, you put it back.
I'm not gonna, but oh my goodness. And like they did the full version as well. I think it's a 10. I can't find a flaw with it. I really can't think of a flaw with it.
I thought it was a
yeah, I'm gonna say a 10.
Yeah, no, that's good. It definitely. I mean, it got you cosplaying it as well, right? This is one that you did a proper photo shoot and stuff as well.
I've got an update coming to that as well. I'm doing the purple shirt version. That's on its way.
Nice. Oh, awesome! Yeah, it's weird. It's like I tell you what, you did remind me of things that I enjoyed and I forgot. There were things that were fun. The ice rink fight, the way that was quite cool. I think the thing that sort of, in terms of what didn't happen, was more about characters. The tracksuit mafia in general, I wasn't sure how to take them a lot of the time in terms of sometimes they're cartoons, sometimes they're serious, and it was hard for me to. But yeah, no, that's really cool.
The comics would have helped there as well. You see.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's the other thing. There were comments coming similar. Yeah, he said he enjoyed it more than What If. Absolutely, for sure. It was a lot of fun. Stuck close to the source material, what you said, and it worked. Unlike what they did with What If, and he gave it a 7. So yeah, so there were, and obviously Craig, Hawkeye worked really well. The few different MCU style shows with the others previously released, I'll always like the fact that they did things differently in each of the shows, and this came along, gave us a slice of traditional MCU at the right time. Yeah, I will also say Kingpin left a slightly bad taste in my mouth, and if that didn't happen at the end, I was so excited for it. I tried to not care because they fulfilled my wish of Kingpin was there, and that was my wish. And I did say before that I don't care how crazy it was, so I should just step back, but it was really hard to take. Okay, let's jump to Alex.
So I'm gonna kick off really quickly with the Kingpin thing, because I specifically remember with Hawkeye, I saw Spider-Man first thing in the morning, and then messaged you guys of being like, oh yeah, what do you think about Hawkeye? And then you're like, oh yeah, there's a spoiler thing in it of like someone returning back, who I already had heard was coming back, because obviously it had been setting up Kingpin since the beginning. And I was just like, cool, that makes sense. I just saw the movie where Matt comes back in, so like that entirely makes sense to me. Why is that? I think, oh god, Hawkeye is a really weird one for me in the sense of I'm not a huge fan of like the character or like the comics or anything like that. And even in the Avengers, I liked Hawkeye as an additional character, but nothing like majorly, like no real connection to him. I loved so much of what the show set up and was doing. I think that it could have gone one or two ways. It could have either been the new-ish Daredevil for the new like, MC style, if they went like more of that kind of really kind of grounded reality stuff. However, I think that would have taken away from the MCU stuff in like the past because he's already a pre-existing character. But I kind of wish that I don't know if I don't know what I wanted more of. If I wanted more darker street level stuff or more, hey, I'm the straight guy in a group of gods and big green guys kind of thing. I have to admit I have a real soft spot for the LARPing episode 1 just because of the ridiculousness of it, but also the sincerity in which the episode was done. I liked the concept of Hawkeye being the guy who's on the floor. So basically he's even though people say that Spider-Man is like the street level hero, Hawkeye is like the street level man. Like that, because he really doesn't have any kind of power stuff. Again, I agree. I think Haley's one of those really charismatic people where I don't really care what she's in. I will always enjoy watching her in it because she's got one of those kind of personalities. I love the inclusion of Echo, and I'm kind of looking forward to the Echo series and what they do there. I do think that the Kingpin in this series is strange to see only because the only memory you have prior is him like literally decapitating a man with a car door. But then with that, we also saw a decapitated man with a shield in the same kind of confines of like story. So it's that thing of like, I don't know why they kind of debuffed Kingpin the way they did, considering what had been set up in other stuff. Because I would say that Falcon and Winter Soldier and Hawkeye are the two most grounded shows compared to Loki, What If, and WandaVision. I didn't hate the Christmas setting. I didn't despise the musical. I hated the fact that was the post-credit sequence for the series as like in its entirety. But I do think that if I gave Falcon and Winter Soldier a 6, I'd probably give this. I'm fighting between a 5 and 6, so I might say a 5.5.
Okay.
Only because like there's nothing really more, because like I would say the Falcon and Winter Soldier said more with its story than Hawkeye did, but Hawkeye was more enjoyable than Falcon Winter Soldier was with a lot of the tropes of comic books, so like the villains, the characters, the plot, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I would say 5.5.
That makes sense. Yeah, this is a strange one. It's like it's what you said. Actually, you don't know what you would have wanted to make it better. That definitely rings true with me.
Yeah, I kind of feel like if it was more one thing than the other, I would very much be voting higher or lower depending on what my response to that way it went was. So I think it's very inoffensive. I think it's a very simple, 100%. Understated show. Yeah,
and even I haven't gone back to watch it, but I could see myself doing so. Just it's lighthearted.
Also, Yelena, like again,
also Yelena,
is one of those people who I do genuinely like adore everything that she's in, and I think she's a bit of a saving grace with her and Kate, and I think that itself has like sparked off so many more things going forward.
Yeah. That dynamic was special. That was really, really cool to see. Just before we jump to Ryan, the LARPing thing, the first time that we saw them, I really enjoyed it for the sake like having that soft spot. I really, really enjoyed it. Later on, I found their character a bit strange in terms of what, like, there were decisions that people made in the characters that I found strange, and it sort of took me slightly out of the ground.
Oh yeah, no, I'd 100% agree with that. I think my whole thing with the LARPing thing is the fact that they played it for laughs, but not parody. It's a weird one to kind of describe. I like the idea of Clint going to a LARPing thing, being the character that he is, and kind of being so what's the word? Being so unbothered by the LARPing experience, but because it's him. I don't know, something about it hit right for me, basically. And I think that Jeremy Renner is also a great casting, and I'm glad that he got to do more. I just wish that there was more of something, and I don't know exactly what it is. I'm assuming Ryan might suggest it, or he might just say the show is just shit as a whole.
Well, let's see what he says now. On to Ryan.
I think I'm going to surprise people. I actually really, really enjoyed Hawkeye. Yeah, I mean, it's a Christmas show, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like Home Alone. You put it on at Christmas, you switch off your brain, you enjoy characters that are incredibly likable. And because of that, you kind of forgive a bunch of sins. Looking at it critically, I do have like pet peeves about storylines that can be solved if two people just speak to each other rather than like the whole Yelena thing could have been wrapped up in 3 sentences.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. It was dragged out over an entire series.
Mm.
And that's just it just frustrates me to watch. And so every single scene where Yelena attacked Clint, it was like, okay, just use your words.
Yeah.
Just say something. But yeah, like, but then Florence Pugh is the best thing in Marvel right now, and her and Haley Steinfeld together on screen is just fucking gold. I really enjoyed Hawkeye and Kate Bishop's relationship. The whole like the trick arrow thing on the bridge, despite being absolutely absurd in terms of like,
cool.
if you think about it for a second, it's like, okay, so you're an Avenger, you just destroyed the bridge. But you switch off your brain to it because it's Christmas and it's just what you do with Christmas shows. So like where WandaVision was hanging their hat on a lot of like the mystery tropes for you to like look past the kind of bad calls in terms of the story. This puts a lot of kind of weight on that Christmas setting to be like, no, you shouldn't. It doesn't have to make sense because it's Christmas. So there's a lot of that going on. I really, really hated what they did to Fisk. Like, coming off of Daredevil, where he was like genuinely intimidating and imposing in every single scene that he was in, even if he was just having a conversation, he was like one hair trigger away from killing someone. And then you get him in this, and it's like, oh, okay, so he's not actually a threat at all. He just got beaten up by a 17-year-old girl. So that's disappointing. And that leads into something that I'm sure we'll mention later with what they've done to Daredevil as well, that I'm just not a fan of. I just don't like the Disneyfication of these characters. Coming off of like what is canon in their past, as far as we can tell, to now seeing them like this just feels kind of like they've neutered the characters. But yeah, I'd probably, what did I give Loki? I gave Loki a 7, right? I'd probably give this a 7 as well.
Yeah, you give it a 7. Yeah,
I'd probably give this a 7 as well. I think it's, I mean, yeah, you rank anything in film or TV, and it's like, oh well, you rank these two things on the same number, but it's for very different reasons. This is like pure enjoyment. Like it's just, I'll probably watch this Christmas. And I can't say the same for anything else we've talked about so far.
Yeah, no, I get that. Like, I can see myself watching it. I haven't done so yet. I can see myself watching it. So I think amongst this group of people, I'm not the biggest fan of Christmas kind of frolicking and happiness. I'm a little bit of a Scrooge. I think that does affect me. So because of that, I then don't have the excuses in my head for for some of the stuff. But
but I mean, like, yeah, you look at it the same way that you do with Home Alone. If someone caught an iron in the face coming down like a 2 flights of stairs, they would die. But in Home Alone, it's just funny. And it leaves a funny imprint, and it's fine because it's Christmas. So you do that in any other movie, and that's a story about a kid who kills 2 men in his house.
You've literally just hit the nail on the head of just like, I don't know whether I wanted Hawkeye to be more like Daredevil or more like a Home Alone thing, of like going absurd with the tricks that he could do, or making it like he's like the lead assassin. Because you got 3 of the biggest human killers in the MCU in one show, but they blow up an entire bridge in order to stop a bunch of fake Russian dudes in
In a van.
tracksuit.
Yeah.
And you see, so the thing about Home Alone is a comedy, a sitcom, kind of like comedy sort of thing, and I'm expecting to laugh. I will crack up with someone's head is on fire because of the torch blows and stuff like that, right? If Hawkeye was, we'll get into She-Hulk another time, but like later on. But if Hawkeye was a comedy, then I would actually expect more of the comedy side of things than what was shown. But I would be accepting of the other comedy stuff, the tracksuit mafia, all that stuff. I would accept it all. Or if it's the other way around, if it was more like a street level thing, I liked Hawkeye's escape. That first fight where he didn't have his stuff. It was. I really loved that. Really grounded. Him dealing with ear trouble and stuff. Like I liked all those kind of elements. So it depends on which. And then, yeah, Fisk really brought the Disneyfying part of that for me. But yeah, that was really interesting. We're going to bring in someone else here now to add to this. We have Tom.
Hi guys.
I'm recording his scores anyway, so now he's here. We've already read your views here, so we're going to jump onto the next one. To help us moving forward. But you can start us off in the next series, and that is, interestingly enough, Moon Knight. So thoughts on Moon Knight. So I'm gonna start hiring everyone a little bit more. I know we're enjoying the discussions, but so that we can get to the movie ones as well. So go for it.
I really enjoyed parts of Moon Knight. I liked sort of like the psychology behind the show, and I liked how they sort of translated his illness that he's got and his different psyches on the show. And I liked how, at least when it first started, how they introduced it. I really liked their like initial first dive into the Egyptian culture as well. I thought that was really good. For me, there was a turning point of the show where it got maybe a little bit too comical, and just a little bit too plain and simple. Oh, here's the bad guy. Let's go defeat the bad guy. Blah 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 blah. But generally, I enjoyed the show. I could be very nitpicky about it, but I think for me, it's kind of sort of what I expected. The whole phase 4 for me, barring a couple of examples, has been very sort of experimental, and that's kind of been like a running theme throughout all of the shows. And I think this one here, it was, I kind of wanted it to be a little bit darker than perhaps what it was on the show, but I felt that it needed that. But yeah, if I was going to give it a score, I'd say 6, maybe 7 out of 10 for me.
Which one should I go?
I'll be kind. Let's go for a 7 because I did enjoy it. Nice.
Yeah. I'll go next on this one, and yeah, it's it started off the way I wanted it to be. I remember there were musings around on social media of like, oh, is this going to be the one that tops WandaVision kind of thing? Like, it started off pretty strongly, dealing with the psychology aspects, which thrilled me to no end. And like you say, later on, it kind of became a Power Rangers show of like, good versus evil, things becoming Megazords and all that kind of stuff. Like, it was, right? Unfortunately, but I think the strange thing is my memory of the aesthetic and the psychological parts and the exploration into how he got broken and things like that was so strong. It helps to balance it for me. Like I can almost forget the parts that didn't work so well for me, because the parts that did worked so strongly for me. Seeing being about to start a fight and then blacking out and coming back and then seeing what the situation is. It was a unique way of seeing how things were progressing.
That is one of the things that I enjoyed most about the show.
Right.
Yeah, it was the constant dip in and out.
Yeah. And so and then there were some things that didn't make sense. I think for me, the crux, the biggest thing that didn't make sense and I wasn't a fan of was the whole court thing in the middle, where they're believing this random guy, but they decide not to believe Khonshu and and Steve Mark, whatever, for some reason. That was a bit weird, but yeah. So I enjoyed it, and as much as the things that didn't work for me. This is gonna be quite hard because what did I give Falcon Winter Soldier? I gave it a 7. Because I'm feeling about giving this one a 7.5. And I guess it is kind of similar in that there were things that worked for me very, very well and really strongly, but then there are other things that were a bit weak. So I'm going to be comfortable giving the 7.5 for me. Alex, what are your thoughts?
I'm going to keep this one super short and simple because I kind of felt like the show was very similar. I can give this a very solid 6 in terms of enjoyment. I think there's some great moments in it. I think that this either should have been a movie and much more focused, or the show should have been more like Legion and just gone absolutely apeshit with the mental health stuff.
I completely agree with you.
I think that they pussyfooted around the mental health stuff a bit too much in terms of disappointing too many people who might be offended by it. But at the same time, you're dealing with a guy who wraps himself in white cloth out of nowhere and deals with the magical like moon spirit. If you're going to be offended by that, stop watching Marvel movies. Like that's kind of the way I think about it. I think this would have been a very great movie. So the show as it is, if that got formulated into a movie and cut out a lot of the fluff, would be way better, especially if you add that concept of like the coming in and out. Effectively, this could have been like a really cool, like Egyptian style Jason Bourne-ish movie of like discovering what the story is. Or make it a TV show like Legion where you don't know what's happening. And like, it's one of the shows you definitely don't want to watch either whilst intoxicated or high, because it's such a mind mess. So yeah, a solid 6 for me. The format completely didn't work for what the TV show was, in my opinion.
No, I absolutely agree about the movie thing. I really wish it was a movie. By the way, Tom, sometimes I'll mute you just in terms of the background listening. Just unmute yourself when you need to speak.
I just really thought I was. I'm so sorry. I'll do that.
No, it's fine. It's everyone. I've asked everyone to do so it's all good. Paul, go ahead.
I think I pretty much agree with everything Alex said, to be honest with you. The first couple episodes did feel like I was watching the beginning of a movie. The production values was amazing. You've got this incredible actor and these incredible locations and everything like that. And I was like completely on board for this. It was showing touches of what you knew from the comics with the multiple personality and stuff. So I was on board for that. And then it just went off the rails completely and didn't make any sense at all, and introduced characters that, didn't really work. It was unfortunate that the actor who unfortunately passed away, I think it was like a seeing accident or something like that, I can't remember, but his character's got, even though the show had been filmed, his character just sort of like disappeared. And it, like Loki, it kind of brought it back for that one crazy episode in the hospital, but that wasn't enough to bring me back on board, because either the whole show should have been like that, as Alex absolutely said, that's a fantastic comparison to Legion, or they should have carried on with more of the sort of like mercenary soldier of fortune kind of side to Mark Spector. He's got those two sides to his character from the comics, and they needed to pick one, or at least if they wanted to do both, merge them a little bit better. By the end, the two big CGI gods fighting, I just didn't care at all. I lost all interest in it. And then when you finally have that final fight, and Ethan Hawke is an amazing, incredible actor. He's just phenomenal. He's been in, all sorts of things. But he was just such a really boring villain that I didn't care about. I didn't really understand what he was doing. And then you don't even see him getting taken down. We had like another lost time moment, or whatever you want to call it, and in the final episode, and I thought that was really, really disappointing. I want to give it more because I love Oscar Isaac, and because the first two episodes were so good, but I have zero interest in watching it again. I think they handled Mr. Knight really, really badly. I'm not interested to find out what the third personality was. At one point I was, but I don't care anymore. And I will watch the second series just because I'm a Marvel fan and I want to see what happens, but I'm not looking forward to it at all. So I think I'd have to go for a 5 on this one.
Oh, this one's a 5. Okay. So not quite your lowest. That's reserved for what if. Ryan, how about yourself?
I think I said earlier that What If was my the biggest disappointment. I think actually Moon Knight was for me personally. Just in terms of I've Moon Knight's one of the few Marvel characters that I've actively followed the comics for. And so I was really excited for what they could do with Moon Knight. And then they decided to make it what it was, which was an absolutely run-of-the-mill action bullshit with some set dressing of mental health stuff in it. I'm just going to parrot what Alex and Paul both said. It should have been like Legion. If they were going to do that side of the character, they should have doubled down on it. They were so tasteful with how they handled kind of race and stuff in Falcon Winter Soldier, and they didn't do that at all for Moon Knight. Because it could have been a really, really compelling kind of dive into kind of mental illness and just what it can do to a person's ability to comprehend themselves and who they are. But instead we got one episode, which I think was episode 5, which admittedly was, in my opinion, the only one that was worth watching out of the 6 episode run. But even that only kind of scratched the surface of it. It really didn't go as far as it should have. Massive disappointment. Episode 5 brings it up a bit, but I'd probably give it a 4, annoyingly. And it could have been so much better. It could have been for whether you like it or not, the Justice League movie had a really good Batman opening. Was it Justice League or was it?
I was going to say which Justice League.
Yeah,
I think it was the cinema release one, where they showed Gotham and it was really dark and gritty and Batman was a symbol to be feared kind of thing, and he was
oh, do you mean Batman?
Yeah. No.
You're talking about when he takes out the parademon.
Yeah. And he has the thug on the roof in the first place before the parademon shows up and whatever else. But he's using the thug as a source of fear. Right. But it's one of the best comic book portrayals of Batman, in my opinion, in terms of what he can actually kind of be and showing Gotham as that gritty kind of that's the sort of tone that if they were going with gritty Moon Knight, I think they should have kind of deep dived into. But it's not MCU Marvel enough, so they never would have gone there. But yeah, like I said, there were 2 ways of going with Moon Knight, and they chose to try and flip between 2 of them rather than doubling down on one or the other, and it's just a disappointment.
The other thing that annoyed me with you talking about that as well, and me thinking about, and also looking at this poster that's on the screen, is the fact that they almost advertised and marketed it like this is our new, almost like The Mummy, the Mummy, the Brendan Fraser Mummy movies, where they're this is going to be our big epic Egyptian scope thing, and I'm that's just what you're advertising isn't what it was.
It started so promisingly, and it was one of those that for me was so strong out of the blocks, and then it's losing steam, and then everything else is catching up. But it was because of how strong it was out of the blocks, I still have fond memories of that. When I think of Moon Knight, I don't think of the Megazords. I don't think of the weird decisions of, or the rules. That was one of the things, was the rules of the gods, and we passing from one place to another, and all. I think things that Paul wasn't a fan of as well. When it became less about the psychology side or that kind of action mercenary side, and more about the inconsistent rules of passing into the afterlife and coming back, and right, that was weird. So I don't even think about those. I just think about this. I think first maybe 3 episodes, 2 or 3, and then, like you say, that fifth one sort of I can't remember if it was 4 or 5, when again the what I call the therapy episode. I think it might be 5, sort of thing, and the rest of it is just kind of forgettable. But yeah, those things that I did enjoy, I really enjoyed, and those other parts I just forget. This is kind of forgettable.
But it's those bits that I really enjoyed that just made me like it shines a light on all of the missed opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, and Craig here, who obviously cosplayed Moon Knight at the premiere, he said, I enjoyed how they approached Moon Knight, given the mental health aspects of the character, but it was dealt well. Agree with Tom, would have liked it to be a bit darker, but I think Oscar was great. Yeah, I really did like Oscar Isaac in the role. Yeah, it's a shame. The reason I'm excited, I know what Paul was saying about being gonna watch season 2 because Marvel fan. I'm excited for season 2 out of hope that they'll return to the things that I really enjoyed, and maybe they'll learn from it. That's my hope. Because if they did approach it like those first 2, then I wouldn't have minded that we didn't see how Thingy was taken down, because I'm interested in that third character. Now, they should have started exploring it when they were in that mindscape, because there's no reason why they would open one casket and not the other. There's no reason why the whole balancing of the heart thing would make sense without that. Like, none of that makes any sense. And I wish that they had included it and done it correctly. But that's Moon Knight. So now we've got our last 2 from here. So Ms. Marvel and She-Hulk. So let's start with Ms. Marvel, and let's start with Alex. Go ahead.
This is the one 100% I think should have been a standalone movie. Right. I don't think that any of the story elements required a TV show to be as much like padding as much as it was. I think this, even like looking at the poster now and remembering so much of it, and also the styles that they had in the first couple of episodes of, like, bleeding text and all that kind of stuff, this could have been such a great comic book movie. Similar, I would say probably similar visually to things like Scott Pilgrim, if they had trusted themselves enough. They really dropped the ball on it, because A, it's a Pakistani girl, B, it's like it's a girl who's a fan of superheroes, and it's like everything that Miss Marvel had was basically we basically gave them like a kind of clean a clean reason to be like, hey, let's do a homage to how the fans see our movies, kind of thing. Not being super metaversy, but like even if they added like previous sound bites from other Marvel movies, or like audio cues, the same way that Scott Pilgrim has like things like Link noises and Mario sounds, like they could have gone really balls to the wall with this one. I think Miss Marvel is a huge waste opportunity being a TV show. And it's a shame, because I love the actress. I think she's phenomenal in the role, and I really wish that she had better material to work with. I can't remember any of the major plot other than a bunch of bangles was like the MacGuffin they had to go after. And yeah, like just as a show, I don't think it worked, and I think it would have been a much stronger movie, especially female-led, especially brown girl female-led. And I know that obviously we were trying to avoid politics and stuff, but that would have been such a huge statement from Disney and Marvel if they were able to really go forward and kind of like push that into the forefront. in terms of like rating, I probably would give it like a 5, or even maybe a 4. In just that I don't remember much of it other than the pretty visuals, but I don't remember any of the actual content from it.
Gotcha. Interesting. Okay, so you weren't a big fan of this one. Let's jump to Ryan.
Yeah, so I'm actually not going to be giving this one a number score purely because I didn't watch most of it.
Okay.
So I watched the first 2 episodes and the last episode.
I remember.
Yeah, I watched the first 2. I really, really loved the first episode. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. I thought that the editing was really like cutty and really nice and really really well edited. I thought the use of CGI in it was the best that Marvel have done in years. I thought it had like twangs of kind of Into the Spider-Verse with the like moving graffiti and stuff. It was really, really nicely done. Thoroughly enjoyed the first episode. After watching the second episode, I decided that the show just wasn't made for me. It may be like fantastic for a younger audience, but it was clearly not like aimed at me as a person. And so rather than kind of waste my time becoming hypercritical of every single decision that they made when it was like may have worked for someone else, I decided just to drop it. And then I heard that there were like big reveals in the last episode, so I went back and caught the last like 10-15 minutes of the last episode, just so that going into future movies I knew what the setups were. So obviously they dropped like the whole mutant thing, which was like, it is a big deal for like Marvel moving forwards. And then they set up for the next, like the Marvels movie, presumably. Which is fine. I thought that it was a bit kind of okay, but I assumed that it made sense if you had watched the rest of the show. So I kind of gave it a pass. But yeah, so I'm not going to give it a number score. But what I saw in the first episode, like, was really, really nice, and it was a nice fresh take. And I really like the characters. I like the family. The whole thing with like learning to drive, like actually good, made me laugh. Which is rare to actually laugh out loud at a Marvel property nowadays. So yeah,
cool.
those are my thoughts.
Awesome. So I really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed Ms. Marvel. At the beginning, I felt that the character, I felt myself, I felt aspects of myself in her, in that she was a fan. She was a Marvel fan. Everything she did was the cosplay elements with a friend and stuff. Her friend was really believable. I really liked the relationship between her and that guy. I can't remember his name. But and even the way that, because I see this a lot even with my culture, when those who are not of the same culture, they become such close friends that they kind of even adopt some of the cultural aspects of their friends, kind of thing, where they're talking to their parents and stuff like that. There were lots of little things like the mother asking, if you want some food, and say no, it's fine, and then the next minute she comes with something. There were lots of kind of cultural elements that are similar to mine, but I also felt that those who were actually Asian got even a lot more from lots of little things, the way that people are in the mask, and on top of that, so in terms of those episodes 3 and 4 or something like that, I learned a lot. There was a lot I didn't know about. They tapped into actual history when I asked people afterwards about those. So like, what any part of this made up, or is this, and they were actual real. And so I think I felt myself, because at first I was kind of, okay, which way are we going now? I really enjoyed the family, like you were saying, Ryan. And we started to kind of go away from that. We went away from America, we went over to there, and I was kind of like, I'm not liking these characters as much as I was liking everyone back home, including her family and stuff like that. But they eventually brought it back, and I felt the last episode was really strong. Both they tied up a lot of story threads. The characters, the way the family were together, the relationship between her and her mother, that sort of thing was tied up really well. Between her and her father, which is a separate thing, that was tied up. Between her and her friend, that was tied up. Between her and her best friend, like there were just, besides the whole superhero thing, all that left aside, I really liked the relationships and the way those things were tied up. I think there's more that could have been done to make it more compelling. I think, like what Alex said, I think that would have helped as well to make it kind of more compelling in general. But I found myself having a good time. So this one again, I'm probably going to go for a 7.5 for this one for me. Trying to think why I want to put it as an 8, but maybe I'm saving. I think the gap between WandaVision is so much for me, so I'm going to give this a 7.5. Tom. You might be muted. Yeah, I'll do it.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Excellent. There you go. I really enjoyed Miss Marvel. I did like the show. However, I agree with absolutely everything that Alex said. Okay, I do feel it would have worked better as a movie.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna just disregard the superhero stuff, just for a minute, just the style, the visual, the animation, just the fun, the very, very what I call close to comic feel of the show, what was good for me, right? And it made me enjoy the show more. If I obviously we got the pleasure to meet Iman at the end of Eternals. And you could already tell just by talking to her that she was very, very passionate about doing the project and all that sort of bits and pieces. And I feel that if I watched any show or film with her, I would love it just as equally as I did as I did Miss Marvel. I love the whole family dynamics. I love the culture stuff. I love that they did touch on real world history as well. That was all sort of very important for, at least in my opinion, very important for moving, her story, Kamala's story forward.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just enjoyed it for what it is, and it hit home in the sense that she was a fan. We're all fans. She was nerding out just like we were nerding out, and some of the things that she said would almost be some of the things that we would say.
Yes, exactly.
You know what I mean? I'm just like, 100%. For me, I think this show is a 7. But I do feel that, yes, it probably would have worked better as a movie.
For sure.
It would have made a massive, strong statement, as Alex rightly said. And I do feel that Disney / Marvel did chicken out slightly. My only issue is, again, what Alex pointed out was the bracelets, the MacGuffin. Given the fact that they dropped the mutant bomb, I would have just loved for them to have gone, well, make Kamala's powers more natural, or by the Terrigen Mist, or a little bit closer to the comic side of things, rather than, hey, magic bangles. You know what I mean? Like, just that was my only very small complaint, but overall, I really liked it.
It's fun. I'm hoping that they, like, I feel like the intention is to explain about those bangles later, because there seems to be some connection in that end credits thing. So I'm hoping that will, but
exactly. And I feel that it's probably going to be explained a bit more in perhaps the next Shang-Chi. Definitely the Marvels as well. All the little items that were kind of popping up all over the place. I'm sure come phase 5, at least some of those will start being explained. But I think for me, 7, maybe an 8. Let's go for a 7, because I really enjoyed it personally.
Nice. And Paul?
Yet another TV series where I really enjoyed the first couple episodes, and then it went off the boil a bit. I loved the animation in the first episode. I really liked the family were fantastic. Everybody was really good in it. Apart from the dreadful convention, which I don't know who they did the research. That was just so bad. I can't get the image out of my head of them eating popcorn and fighting each other with like Viking helmets on or something like that. It was just, who thought that that's what Comic Cons were like? And that massive head being very badly attached, that it fell down and kept rolling and rolling. Head, I can't remember. Whatever it was bad, but it was fun. It was really fun. And obviously, as other people have said, the representation was fantastic. It wasn't obviously aimed at me, but I was on board anyway. And I really learned stuff on this. I Wikipedia'd stuff because I'd heard words I'd never heard before. So I wanted to go and find out how accurate these things were. And, it's highlighted a pretty horrific part of history that I went on to a real deep dive in. To me, it felt like almost they should have waited for the Pakistan stuff to be for the second season and just stuck in Queens for the first one. It was, I can't remember where she's from, but I think that would have worked a lot better. It could have made a fantastic movie. I'm not disputing that, but I think it still could have worked as a TV series if they'd had her struggling with her powers in her own country, highlighting problems with her culture. And I loved her best friend. I thought she was amazing. I really enjoyed those episodes with her wanting to run for council or whatever it was. I can't remember exactly. And the little moments with her sort of like, I thought were really good. The best friend, the guy, I wasn't a huge fan of the actor. I didn't really like his performance in it. I didn't dislike him. It didn't quite work for me. And obviously the mutant stuff was really cool. I loved seeing Carol at the end because I'm a huge fan of Captain Marvel, and I want to see it whenever I can. I wish she'd been in it more, if I'm completely honest with you. But I can see why they didn't want to take away from introducing this new character and giving her a chance to shine. I liked the Pakistan stuff. I really did, but it just felt so completely disjointed from the first couple episodes and the last episode, and it did feel like I should have waited. So I'd like to give it higher, but I think because I'm really not really interested in watching it again, it'd probably be a 6 for me.
Yeah, Paul hit it on the head just there, in the sense of, like, when I mentioned like the movie thing before, I think that's kind of what I also was trying to go in the sense of like the show doesn't work as a show because it's like two separate seasons effectively. Like it's the origin and then it's the background. Yeah, which I know that kind of sounds like it's counterintuitive, but like it's those two. It's a tonal shift as well, because it really does feel like a completely separate show. So yeah, Paul's completely nailed it on the head of like it's just been origin.
It tried to shoehorn in a lot for the minimal amount of episodes that it had, and again, if you're going to do that, you'd want a few more episodes. If you're going to try and fit it in, then do a few more episodes. And I reckon it would have worked fine if that was the case. But if you're going to try and shoehorn it in, then that's movie stuff. Unfortunately, give it the time for it to breathe and to take on board and stuff like that.
Yeah, honestly, my favorite suggestion is Paul's one of season 2 going into Pakistan. Like I didn't realize that was the thing, that because I liked it, but it was so abrupt, and I was just getting used to. I was just enjoying what was happening at the beginning, the style, the people, the family, and if on a similar thing to, like, I've got Superman in my head, as in the Christopher Reeves one, where it's like I know that there was a lot of Krypton stuff at the beginning, but as far as Clark is concerned, it was about him being Superman in the big city and stuff like that, and then things from his past, exploring all that stuff in Superman 2. It would have been nice if they did a similar thing. And again, it's this curse of this whole 6-episode curse. I mean, a lot of the things that we're saying are repetitions from Moon Knight and from the others, where it started off great. First couple episodes is what we wanted, and then it's just the whole 6-episode thing was grating me. And then, of course, we got to a point where they increased the number of episodes again. But did that help things or not? Let's move to She-Hulk. And for this, I would like to start with Ryan. because I like fun. So,
so I think I'm going to surprise people again because I really enjoyed She-Hulk. I feel like it didn't know where it wanted to go, so it didn't really go anywhere for a while, and that was annoying. But like as a series, it almost felt more disjointed in terms of the story that they were telling than What If did. But I still enjoyed every episode. there were a lot of like really weird choices that I didn't agree with, like the whole fucking twerking at the end of the whatever episode that was. It's something that I didn't need to see. No one needed to see. It did not need to exist. I'm sorry, Alex. It didn't.
You're not going to enjoy my
genuinely don't need to see what's in your brain. It's fine. Yeah, I didn't need that on my TV, but everything preceding that moment I really enjoyed. It was fun. It was fun in a way that Hawkeye was fun, where it's like it's completely self-aware, as it should have been. I mean, She-Hulk has the fourth wall breaks and stuff. Completely self-aware as to what it like wanted to be. It just didn't seem to know how to execute it. So I had a lot of fun with it. I didn't like the inclusion of Daredevil. I feel like they did his character dirty. But that's almost a separate thing, because speaking about it now, I'm actually realizing that I sort of wiped it from, like, I wiped him out of all of the scenes that he was in. Because I liked She-Hulk in all of those scenes, but the second Daredevil showed, I was like, oh, you're not Daredevil. Who are you? Weird Disneyfication everyone has to be a quippy asshole. And I'm just not a fan of that characterization in every single male character and female character in most places, but the female characters now actually seem to have more range to their characterizations than the men do in Marvel. I feel like the sticking point for a lot of people is what they did with the finale. I absolutely loved what they did with the finale. I thought it was I wasn't expecting it at all. It like subverted my expectations in a way that a fourth wall break character only could. I don't know how they're going to handle her as a character moving forwards. I feel like she no longer can act as a character in the MCU anymore after that. But I enjoyed it as I was watching it because I didn't think too much about it. I thought that Abomination coming back was a fun use of a character that hasn't been relevant in like how long? Like 15 years, 14 years, 15 years. I've been a huge fan of the actress Tatiana, I think it is, ever since Orphan Black. I think she's a phenomenal actress, and if you haven't seen Orphan Black, you should absolutely watch it. It just, the only failing point for it, in my opinion, really, is that it didn't have much of an overarching story because there was no antagonist in any real sense, apart from Titania, who actually, no, I'm about to contradict myself now because I've just remembered a bunch of issues that I have. So there is a thing that She-Hulk has done where they have just told us that there are superheroes everywhere now, and they're never explained. They have no origin story. They just exist and are accepted by everybody. And I hate that. I hate that it used to be that we had to have like some explanation of, like, you can tell me that they're Asgardian and that's fine. I can accept Asgardian because it's all been kind of confirmed and it's canon and it exists. But then you have everyone that was at that support group at Abomination's place, and none of them have any origin at all. They just popped into existence one day, and everyone was like, "Oh yeah, cool." I'm sorry, I can't accept that.
Mm-hmm.
I can't accept that after meticulous planning on the part of
Yeah.
Marvel for like the goings on of how superpowers work in this world.
Yeah.
And now there's just people everywhere that have superpowers. Like, it wouldn't have taken much to be like, oh yeah, well, superhero influencers are popping up all over nowadays because of the blip. Like, that's all it would have taken. But there's no justification at all for how these people got their powers, or why the world like doesn't really care, and they're just normal people selling knockoff perfume. And it's like, yeah. But the show overall, I really enjoyed. I'd probably give it a 6 or a 7 just out of like pure enjoyment. And for doing something, I'd probably give it a 7 overall, just for like pure enjoyment.
See, is this Ryan's highest? Yeah,
no.
joint highest.
Is it joint highest?
Oh no, it's not.
No,
sorry,
I gave WandaVision an 8.
WandaVision, yeah. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, it's a tricky one because the implications it leaves on the rest of the MCU are really difficult to like deal with. Yeah. But the show itself is so much fun, and it was the first one in a while that I tuned in each week to actually watch it, because it was like it was a laugh for 45 minutes or however long the runtime was. So, I hadn't done that for, well, I mean, I didn't watch Ms. Marvel. Yeah. I didn't do that for Moon Knight. I ended up catching up at the end.
Right.
And then you're back to the previous December, right?
Yeah. So it's so funny. It's so interesting. There are some thoughts that you some things that you really enjoyed, which I hated, and there's some things that you hated, but I thought, oh, that's all right. This is a hard one. I think overall, I wasn't a fan. That the thing you mentioned about the plot, that was the biggest thing ringing in my ear, and it may not have rung so hard if not for that finale. I had hope like yourself. I enjoyed when that massive fourth wall break first happened. I really enjoyed it. I think I audibly squealed when seeing the Disney Plus thing, right, and then dropping out. And I thought, I felt that a Loki thing was about to happen, where the last episode was about to just save it all, and there's going to be some kind of thing that makes me just recontextualize everything and be like, okay, I'm really loving this. I thought it was really clever. I'm kind of glad that she didn't meet the actual Kevin Feige. Some part of me wanted it to happen, but I was also glad it didn't happen, because it already is way out there. Like, how do you have this character interact with other people now? Like, but it was the fact that the resolution of that didn't seem to add anything. Like, she complained about certain things about the way the show was, got things fixed, but in getting things fixed, things were just magically resolved when she got back. That was my biggest problem. I was hoping for her missing something. Like, so, okay, I want it this way, and then she gets back and things are still not what she expects, because, I don't know, let's say the leader is actually doing something in the background and we didn't know, whatever it happens to be. But I just felt that they didn't bring it back with that. And so I just felt it was a wasted opportunity. After the first, I was enjoying at the beginning, particularly because I enjoy her. I really enjoy her character. As She-Hulk, I want to see her in, because I like her as She-Hulk. I even like her, the snarkiness kind of thing. It's like, I really quite like her character. But the situations, I feel it just wasn't. There was a point at which I said, okay, maybe this is just not for me, right? Especially, her sorting out her dating life or figuring out who she is and things like that. And so, okay, maybe it's just kind of a not for me. But I also felt and heard, this is supposed to be a sitcom.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't. The problem was it wasn't making me laugh.
Yeah,
there were like a couple of things that made me laugh. Now, unfortunately, I did laugh at the twerking. I have to admit, I wasn't expecting it, and I did laugh at it. But that aside, there were a couple of things. That made me laugh, but overall, I was finding myself not laughing. The Abomination thing. So I felt the same way about Abomination as you did for Daredevil. I've been waiting for him to come back for so long. I really enjoyed him. He sticks in my mind from that Hulk movie, and I've wanted him to come back. And I got really excited when we saw him at Shang-Chi in that cage fight. It's like, okay, it's coming. He's going to come back. And then he was kind of brought back as this kind of cartoonified sort of person. It's just kind of, right, I see. I had a little bit of hope when it seemed like he was... that it was actually nefarious, right? That he's there with kind of misogynic men's club kind of thing. But he actually didn't know what was going on. Like he wasn't actually a bad guy. He was just trying to earn money, right? And so he was still this kind of, for a guy who was such a serious military person, he was so laser focused. I really enjoyed him in the Hulk. And so it was kind of, oh, that's a shame. With the Daredevil one, yeah, go on.
Did you not buy the just following orders thing? Like basically his defense for like parole. So at the time he was the hero he was fighting against. Like it's not his fault that the Hulk ended up being an Avenger and ended up like after movie one entire personality shift because Marvel took over.
Yeah, this is the thing. Like I bought his explanation, but I bought it as a lie. I have to explain that. Like, so as something that he was saying in order to try and help his parole. But from what we saw and what they would never know is that he put his heart and soul into it. It's like it became a competition like between him and the Hulk. He really put all of himself into it. And he could use this as an excuse to try and get parole. Not that he has genuinely changed, let alone these, were they Asgardians? Were they, I don't know, these forlorn women from Asgard? I don't know. Like, it was just, it's not the way I wanted to see him come back. And and strangely enough, I enjoyed the Daredevil one because I got a taste of the previous Daredevil. Now, the reason why I was okay with it was partly because the resolution of the Daredevil series seemed to put him in a good place, both with Foggy, with Karen, the firm, and his acceptance of being Devil. Fisk is kind of was put away. He's kind of got Vanessa. He's kind of using Vanessa as a bargaining chip so that his secret identity not revealed. Like, I felt like he's got to kind of a good place, so I didn't mind him being a bit more snarky. The suit, like, let's just leave that one at She-Hulk and let's go for a new suit, please. But I was fine with it. So I enjoyed seeing him being a bit snarky and being a bit of a know-it-all, and so I was okay with him doing that. Abomination, I didn't buy it. What was going on episode to episode, I was just kind of bored. The only thing that was keeping me going was that the lead character is just such a great actress, and then the end, like, it almost had me. I was like, this is so much fun. And it's like, so what did she actually overcome this whole entire season? What happened this whole entire season?
Well, yeah, see, the argument that I would make as a She-Hulk apologist, apparently, is that the antagonist of She-Hulk was She-Hulk. And it was about Jen's acceptance that she has things that She-Hulk doesn't have. Because the entire, like, every single episode, there is, like, a side plot of Jen feeling belittled by, like, the She-Hulk persona. And always feeling like second best. And then at the end of by the end of the series, it's not She-Hulk that stops everything and resolves the issue. It's Jen that does that. Jen has the conversation with Kevin, not She-Hulk.
Yeah, see, I didn't feel so. I understand what you're saying, that it didn't feel like she had the growth only because the reason she changed was the joke of the CGI expense, which was funny, right? Which was really funny, and I enjoyed that. But so it was hard to see decisions that she had made. I felt like there was a big potential when she was when the misogynist kind of outed her with that footage and all that stuff and whatnot, and that put her in the public eye in a really bad light. But I didn't see any resolution to that. It magically got solved, and that really bothered me. It really bothered me. But yeah, having said all that, sorry, we're getting excited and carried away. And by the way, we're probably going to do another session for the movies. I had decided partway through. But
we're not in a 4-hour one.
Yeah. But score-wise, this is really difficult. Now, I think you made a comparison with Hawkeye at some point earlier. Hawkeye for me was very structured, in terms of who the protagonists are, who the antagonists are, the story, that one made a lot of sense to me, and so I have to put this one at a 5. I think for me, yeah. Let's jump to Paul.
Just one thing first.
Yep.
My tablet for some reason is not charging, so if you lose me, I'll come back on my phone.
Okay.
But I've got it charging up, but for some reason it's dropping rather than going up, which is weird. But yeah, anyway. Yeah, I mean, you guys have already said pretty much everything there is to say about this. There is a part of me that could say that I hated this show, but that wouldn't be really accurate. I mean, I think it was good solely because of Tatiana's performance as She-Hulk and Jen, which I really, really enjoyed. The CGI wasn't that great, but I can look past that. It's fine. But it was literally her performance which was keeping me going. I pretty much hated every other character in it. I can't think of any other character that I liked in it at all. I thought they were all dreadful caricatures. I did feel like it was like a what if episode. Like this was like an alternate universe MCU. It didn't feel like the MCU to me at all. Like Ryan said about the superheroes they brought in, it just felt like the kind of throwaway characters you get in like a what if show where you can just put them in because it doesn't matter. So it felt like a very different reality to me. I don't mind the Netflix shows are gone now. That's it. They're over. They're done. So going forward, any characters that come into the MCU are going to be MCU versions of those. And I've made my peace with that, and it's fine. So the great thing about Matt in this series was because it raised the level of acting ability and characterization to a point where, oh yeah, there are actually other people that can act in this show, which is it desperately needed, because I found the best friend to be just really annoying. I found the other lawyers who I don't even know, I can't even remember anything about her, but she was dreadful. The dude, oh my god, I mean, just complete personality vacuum, just moron going on about and stuff like that. It was just so bad. The family was dull and boring and didn't bring anything to it at all. I don't know, this was just, I wanted to like it. I did, and I did like it on some level because of her performance. The final episode was good in the fourth wall break, whatever it is, but even then, we talked about this at the time, the way that it just suddenly finished really quickly, and when she goes back, he's already in handcuffs and being led away. So once again, we're robbed of a finale episode where the bad guy gets taken down, and the fact that the bad guy was that idiot, I mean, Jesus. This is the TV series that made me bored of Wong, which I just didn't think was possible. but I was like, please can Wong stop being in it, and please can he never be referred to as Wongers ever again, please. It was just it was very close to a parody show, and I think that's a shame because it could have been amazing. It could have been this fantastic. I love lore shows and lore movies, and I think that could have been brilliant in that regard, with the humor and the talking to the audience and stuff like that. And that's fine. I think they maybe went a little bit too crazy on talking to the audience, but it was fine. But yeah, no, it deserved. She deserved better. We deserve better. Yeah, I give it like a 5, and that's probably being generous.
Yeah, it's funny though. It's with all the stuff you mentioned. And to be honest, I actually agree with everything you said. Maybe I probably wouldn't be as harsh with it, but I agree. But like I say, if it made me laugh, if this thing, then I would have actually been okay with all of it, because I would understand this is designed to be just a pure comedy, like Guardians, right? Guardians, this kind of thing really well. They're like, we're just gonna make you laugh, but there's still a cohesive thread, a beginning and end, a thing that they're trying to kind of go get. They'll even laugh at tropes, right? All of us standing in a circle, all that kind of stuff, right? So yeah, if this made you laugh, I can get behind it. But, yeah, yeah, you made me laugh with most of the comments. I couldn't stop laughing. Alex, go ahead.
I recommend going to Tom before me.
Okay, this is gonna be fun. Tom, go ahead.
So I'm a bit of a mix between Ryan and Paul so far. There were parts of the show that I genuinely did love. The fourth wall breaks, were great. The fourth wall shattering was a little bit jarring for me in the sense to the extent that they went, but I kind of also found humor in that.
Yeah.
I do have some nitpicks. They done Abomination dirty as far as I'm concerned. I understand why everything was the way it was. I just don't necessarily agree with the way that everything was. She-Hulk, perfect depiction. Tatiana, fantastic. Titania, I kind of love Titania for just the silliness foil of Titania. I can see Paul's reaction; it's great. But again, that they kind of also ruined Titania, because Titania is meant to be this strong, powerful, woman, and Jen's opposite. She-Hulk's opposite in terms of powerhouse and stuff like that. And yeah, it got me down. And then, just as I think all three of us have mentioned so far, the way that the show and the last episode ended, man, I was let down. Like I did want a big fight scene. I can't, I'm going to sit here. I wanted that fight scene. The dude being, okay, look, I'm going to call him the secondary protagonist, okay, because the intelligentsia are all there, okay, and I'm sure, I'm hoping that is going to continue over into the next season, hopefully, and that's going to be explored a bit more, and the master's going to come, and I hope all of that comes, but man,
I wouldn't hope for.
Yeah, no. and that's the thing. It's just like the way that it all ended hasn't left me with too much higher hope.
Yeah,
the whole struggle between Jen and She-Hulk, loved that. Thought it was great. I thought it needed to be explored more, though. The whole lawyering job. If they had taken this show and made it, a law show with the comedy and the fourth wall breaks in, I would have been so down for that.
All in.
All in for it, just like the comics. And I know I keep mentioning the comics, but it works. And if it was like that, that would have been great. And along with all the usual MCU superhero-y menace in the background and all that sort of stuff, that would have been great.
Yeah. I'm a big fan. I love lore shows and movies. Like John Grisham is my favorite author. Read books, and if they wrote a really, even if that's the thing, even if they didn't have a She-Hulk and they just made it a lawyer show, I would have been all over it.
Yeah.
Let alone having that extra element.
I am a sucker for like those Law and Order type shows.
Yeah.
I would have been fine with that if that's what it was with She-Hulk plus the MCU. We just didn't quite get that.
Yeah, most opportunities they had for that to happen. She wasn't the center of it. Like there were a couple of things like the name copywriting and things like that. And there was another, like I was hoping that it would be things that really kind of mattered. Like I feel like Jessica Jones has been involved in these more than the others. Like in terms of Can
I tell you what the whole going into the writer's room reminded me of, which left a really sour taste in my mouth?
Matrix
Revolutions.
Yes,
Yeah,
that is the same.
Yeah, and
PTSD.
Again, I've never wanted so much from a film, and then they go and do that, and they cat memes and oh man, and that that was it, and that I think that is why it was a very middle of the road show for me. A 5 at best, I think. There were some funny moments, but overall it was
Yeah. So you mentioned intelligentsia. I remember one of the big issues I had in terms of the whole problem of the resolution. The guy who she got along with and she slept with, and then he stole information from her phone and stuff. We didn't get to see him again.
No.
Like there was the whole intelligentsia group there, apparently. And I was looking around trying to find him. This is someone who invaded her privacy. Like this was the conflict that she
and that's the thing. Like that they introduced that concept. They introduced they're attacking Jen's character, they're attacking She-Hulk, but it never felt like it went anywhere. I had to treat each episode as its own separate thing, which is kind of almost what the point of the show was in its entirety. It was about Jen dealing with different things in each episode. But it kind of lost cohesion for me. And I guess I've come to expect that from most MCU, Marvel TV shows and films as an overarching thing.
Yeah.
And I think we'd all be lying if we didn't, if we said we don't need to see the Master in there or,
I think that expectation is partly why I have become so lenient on on She-Hulk in specifics, because everything that you've said is absolutely true. But I fully expect it from the MCU now, so it's no longer a negative. It's just this is what MCU shows are.
It is what it is, and to some extent, that's what I do. But I think I just with what they've got with She-Hulk, and again, I think it was Paul that said it, where she's not going to be able to be She-Hulk in the movies. Like she's almost going to be a completely different thing, and it does feel like she's almost in a separate universe or something like that entirely, because I can't see how, especially if they take the fourth wall thing, and they drum that in on the show. I don't think she's going to be able to do that wholeheartedly in any of the films that she's going to be in.
No, and we see that already. Like you can't tell me, like no one could ever convince me that. Sorry, I'm going to skip ahead slightly. That Thor in Endgame is the same character as Thor in Love and Thunder. Like this is just it's just the case when you have this many kind of, for lack of a better word, like showrunners handling the same characters through the same continuity with different directors and writers.
And I think what's going to happen is the characters will be one character in their respective shows, but in the films it will almost be as if they're a completely different person. Or they'll have different things that they want to attain for themselves and all that sort of bits and pieces, because that's the only way that I can kind of see it going forward.
Yeah, and it's kind of also sort of not new as well, in the sense that let's take Tony Stark even. In Iron Man 3, he's largely still himself, but the Tony Stark we've seen in Iron Man 3 has a lot of differences to the Tony Stark in Civil War, right? This Civil War being closest to my favorite in terms of his characterization. And even Tony Stark in the Avengers movie, the Joss Whedon Avengers movies versus Tony Stark in Iron Man movies and the Russo movies, he's more exaggerated than the Avengers movies. The douchebag is exaggerated. He's a dude to his fellow teammates and things like that, laughing at the face of like, oh, we've just had our place trashed by Ultron and that kind of stuff, and the sort of things he says in the first, put on the suit, like it's very hyper exaggerated there, more balanced in some others. So yeah, I guess with different showrunners, different direction, we're going to see this sort of thing. But yeah, Alex, right? Let's. I'm interested to hear this.
So it's very evidently clear that, much like an abusive relationship, when you just come to expect nothing but disappointment, when you kind of get back into the dating scene, anyone who shows anything different seems kind of better in comparison. Now, I will be the first person to admit that She-Hulk Attorney at Law is a convoluted, absolute mess. Would I watch it again? 100%. It's one of those really bizarre things where it's like, it's almost, sometimes it's so bad it's good. And then, like, in terms of the Marvel shows, I would, if someone said, hey, let's watch a Marvel show, and they gave me the list, I'd say, fine, put She-Hulk on. Like, I would happily watch that one again. Obviously, with that one, like, not including WandaVision. I'm talking about the 2022 Marvel. So Moon Knight, Miss Marvel, and She-Hulk. So the problem that we've obviously talked about with Miss Marvel and Moon Knight is that they didn't go far enough with their concept because they didn't have the balls to do it. Whereas I think She-Hulk very much did. It very much knew what it was. It was very unapologetic about what it was. Could it have gone further? 100%. Did I want it to go further? 100%. Like, when I wanted her to like bump into some of the Marvel actors when she broke the fourth wall, you know? Like, I wanted her to like bump into Chris Hemsworth and be like, yo, your last movie was shit. But like I wanted that to be the kind of vibe that we got from her. Now, my biggest problem, and I know that we've had this similar situation in the past, we've talked about things like Hawkeye with Craig and Bucky with Paul, but like, I genuinely don't think Marvel know what to do with the whole character. Like, they genuinely have no idea what to do with that character at all. It's effectively a walking mascot at this point. Now, with She-Hulk, I think what Tatiana and the showrunners did with it, I would happily watch like webisodes with that character of just like bonkers lore stuff, whatever. And like, do I think this deserved to be a show? No. Do I think it's going to be a webisode thing? Yeah. It's a really weird thing where everyone's completely right, and like it exists on this plane of existence outside of the MCU as we know it. I think the biggest problem I had in terms of the Daredevil stuff is I actually really like Charlie Cox and I love his Daredevil. I liked him in the show. I liked a lot of their chemistry and a lot of their back and forth. I think my biggest problem is that both he and the showrunner have said, yes, this is the same Daredevil from the Netflix shows. And when you say that to an audience and then you present them with that, given the previous examples, it's very hard to connect the two because, yes, it's a later character, but it feels a bit like the jump was a bit too drastic for me. Whereas I thought, if I'm being honest, I thought the Daredevil was a big jump. I thought the Matt Murdock stuff was actually quite on par because Matt Murdock acted in his scenes the way he did in Spider-Man No Way Home, as also in the show. And I think that kind of stuff was back and forth. I loved the episode of the two of them going at it with kind of lawyeristic lawyer stuff. And even when she looks at the camera and says, this guy's kind of doing it for me, I'm like, yeah, of course he will, because it's totally your type. I think that Emil Blonsky coming back the way that he did was so beyond stupid that it kind of became hilarious to witness just the absolute destruction of a previous character. And that I love the fact they were kind of like, no, it's not even okay. Best example I can give is everyone got really pissed off when they changed Skywalker in Rise of Skywalker, and I fully understand it. I don't get me wrong, I fully understand the Disney sequels. Luke's character changes a lot. He's an important character. Emil Blonsky isn't really an important character. In the first movie, he is there as a hired gun to take out the Hulk. He gets stronger, gets super strong. He gets taken out in the end. So the fact this was like, we're not even going to touch on that other than just like, yeah, I did that once and I was a hired gun. I like the fact they were like, cool. This is the new Blonsky now. This is what you're dealing with. Like, if you want to complain about it, go to Twitter, go to Reddit. We'll look at the quotes, whatever. I love the inclusion of Wong for that one episode with the magician because I thought that was a hilarious way of using the Sorcerer Supreme in a law case against basically a Vegas magician who's doing the same stuff. I thought that was so stupid and bonkers, but it's that whole thing of like super high stakes in this bigger world, but on a low stakes court setting.
Yeah. That's kind of what I mean. If the show was like that throughout,
yes,
I would have been way more invested.
And this is the thing is the fact that the show is very unapologetic about what it is, but I wish it had dialed it up to 11 and broke the knob off, as opposed to going to 9 and being like, let's see how people think about this. I loved the stupidity of the changing elf as guardian woman, who is basically just an anarchist of unbelievable proportions. I liked the stupidity of the leapfrog man, and the fact that it literally made your non-canon shit canon, in that there is in fact a Marvel tailor. So like you do have a costume maker now who makes everything. Who of course is a gay black man, because what? Well, of course. Who else is it going to be? We're talking caricatures and all that shit. I thought that a lot of stuff they introduced which doesn't go anywhere is bonkers to me, because it's like, this isn't a high stakes show, so don't give us high stakes to worry about. So the whole concept of her getting mugged by a bunch of guys with super weapons, and then it not going anywhere, just like, she could have just been mugged by normal dudes, especially as a woman. And that's obviously, they did a lot of the stuff here of like, this is a woman who becomes the stronger woman. And I might have a little bit of a different perspective, only because I like tall, independent women is like my dating scene. That's the only women that I've like connected myself with in the past, right? So I understand that plight a lot. Of sometimes you're fetishized, sometimes people are only interested in you because they want to feel like you can like dom them, whatever it is. So I like that concept, and the fact they didn't really shy away from She-Hulk being that in the modern day world. I even love the fact that like her herself is like, I'm not proud of this. But then I like the fact that it came back around in a legal sense of being like, no, we can win this because you said you were She-Hulk on Tinder. It's stupid. It's so stupid, and it's such a convoluted way of winning a case.
Well, I actually think that was good. So
that's the thing, but like, it works.
Actually all right, because it was a lot when they actually tap into the lawyer type of thing. I'm actually on board. It's one of the reasons I like that Daredevil episode as well.
Yeah, it's problem solving.
Yeah.
Like, it's really interesting problem solving.
I just wish there was. I wish there was more of that.
That's exactly it. I think that the stuff they added in, which made it connect to the wider MCU, is actually at a detriment to the show as a whole.
Yes,
because it is this very weird, bizarre thing that exists outside of the MCU as we know it, or at least the MCU as we have come to know it. I think that the CGI, when it's on, I mean, there are some scenes when I'm not gonna lie, it's really quite fucking good. Like, there are some scenes where it's like, oh, okay, that's quite on point. But then in the exact next shot, it's Uncanny Valley. And that's where like it takes me out of it as someone who obviously watches film and studies film and stuff, where I'm just like, okay, cool. I know you have it in you, but then you disappointed me on the next one. So why? It's like you disappointed me more because I know what you're capable of. The fourth wall break genuinely had me reaching for my remote, and that's very hard to do in terms of like being invested in the show to get that kind of response. It's maybe more excited or more hopeful about potential Deadpool stuff, in terms of if this is kind of fourth wall breaking they're not scared to do.
Yeah,
I'm kind of excited to see what they potentially do with Deadpool. I think Tatiana is genuinely an incredible actress. Like there are so many scenes where I could like just watch her monologue as Jen and herself. The whole therapy scene where she's monologuing as Jen, sorry, as She-Hulk.
Yeah,
I was watching it going, your performance is being failed here by the CGI because it's just nearly there. It needs to just be that little bit extra. And again, with stuff like Avatar that came out like 10 years ago, we know that this stuff is possible and that it's doable. Even with Hulk, like we know that it's possible. We had him in Endgame and stuff like that, so we know it's possible to do a speaking, talking human. Understandably, this is a little bit different because it's female. There's more hair follicles. There's more skin tones. There's different stuff to do.
I think it's also one of how many shows this year.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's a whole kind of separate discussion to have around how Disney and Marvel treat
CGI artists.
CGI artists as like a
lesser species.
I think there's also a thing though. So if you notice, the CGI for Hulk, Professor Hulk, was actually really good in the show.
That's because they have the models.
They have the models, exactly.
Previous stuff, and effectively, it's just adding that to a thing.
Yeah.
I will also say the stuff with the Hulk. Like I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of the laughs, because the only real laughs I kind of got were kind of early in the season where her and him were training, and the whole concept. I don't know why the way that she says a normal amount of rage, the way that she does, always stuck with me as like, I really wish that CGI was a little bit less distracting, because there's something there which I like in that performance between the two of them, that the CGI just slightly takes it out of the sometimes the Uncanny Valley is a bit too strong for me. I love the ones where she's dating all these guys, and I love the idea of her coming back after fighting demons and she basically just lands on this dude, and it's like the sitcom stuff should have been funnier 100%. I think that maybe to a certain audience it is like super hilarious, but knowing the writers that Marvel do have at their disposal, and also what female-led sitcoms have done in the past with like good showrunners, I think that this show could have really been something spectacular if they had the right team of writers behind it, comedy-wise. I think that Crazy Ex-Girlfriend is a perfect example of like a bonkers the wall sitcom style thing.
Crazy,
like that could have been very similar to this. And I wish that this was better so that I could defend it more to people who don't like it for certain reasons. But there was a lot of problems in it, and I fully understand that. I think that me personally, I'm so like beat down by the shows as a whole that the fact this made me feel anything other than just lethargy was a positive for me.
You've really brought a really, really good example, which I'd forgotten for a while. Crazy Super Ex-Girlfriend. That is a hilarious show with superpowers and stakes, like within that whole world. And they went crazy. She did some crazy stuff. But
you're thinking about My Super Ex-Girlfriend?
Yes.
I'm talking about Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, which is a Netflix show, which is basically it's kind of fourth wall breaky, but basically it's the mindset of a crazy ex-girlfriend who basically has musical numbers and does everything in musical songs. So in terms of fourth wall breaking, it's one of those ones where it goes balls to wall with the comedy.
Gotcha.
But my super ex-girlfriend is also a very good example.
Yeah, it's really funny. And that's the thing. It made me laugh. And so doing stuff like, I've forgotten, throwing a whole shark into an apartment,
exactly,
bonkers like that, it worked because this thing didn't. I have to say, the stuff like that episode of Wong and the demons. So I wasn't a fan of that episode. I wanted to be, but I like for me, Wong has been elevated, and I'm really happy that the MCU elevated him. He's Sorcerer Supreme. He was with seeing him and Strange. He was a serious one. He was the one who, as the librarian, he would reprimand Strange. Now a Sorcerer Supreme is like, you need to bow to me. It was just, I liked that the humor was more like a Batman humor in that he wasn't actually trying to be funny. It's just Wong being Wong. And so with the episode before, when he was a witness for to testify for in favor of Abomination, I was fine with that. That was cool. Where it's like, you know, he's busy, so he comes in last minute through the portal, do it, says his thing, and it's like, well, actually, you've broken the law, and it's like, well, gotta go, and he goes. I was happy with that. I liked that. But then the other one where he's like, he's there eating his popcorn or whatever, and you know, this half drunk girl is coming in, and I found it, I couldn't laugh, and which is a shame because the aspect of the dating, the Tinder thing, was actually pretty cool. Like with Jen going through that part was really cool, and so it got juxtaposed against this thing that wasn't fun. The magicians themselves were so hokey, like the magician and his lawyer. It's like cartoon characters, and there were a lot of cartoon characters there. The you mentioned the shape-shifting Asgardian, right?
Yeah.
Now that is fine, but when kind of impersonating the judge and no one's reacting, like only it's weird. It's like certain things and no one cares, or the judge is like impressed with a magic trick in front from the freaking the witness box.
And that's what I mean in the sense of like, I kind of wish that they had gone more balls to the wall of the absurdity in the real world, and then just being like the middle ground to it effectively, or just be like, this isn't the MCU as a whole, or it's something different. I will say with the Wong stuff, like, not to super invalidate your point, because I get where you're coming from, but in Shang-Chi, like, he's doing karaoke at the end, so like the seriousness of Wong hasn't existed for like a year prior. I didn't hate him being in this as the Joker one. Again, the whole Wongers thing is very cringe, and I think that there's definitely an audience who find that funny and an audience who don't. The ones who do definitely don't get on with the ones that don't, in terms of like the humor, because it's very just cheap. It's just cheap. Like, oh, she said the name funny thing. But like, there's definitely parts. Like, I didn't genuinely hate the character, and I thought the whole joke of it being like a valley girl who says like Madison with a Y, but it's not where you expect it. Like, it's a stupid line, but I couldn't help but be like. Like, I know, I've met people like that before, so I get the parody of it.
He's actually okay. It's weird. Like, it's more the situation and everything.
That's the thing. I wish that there were more situations where She-Hulk as a lawyer could have done better lawyer stuff, who just happened to be She-Hulk. Because the comics really are great in that aspect too. Like, I can't remember which one it is. I think it's the one where she defends Old Cap for something. I can't remember what it is, but she basically is called to defend an old Steve Rogers for I want to say it's like crimes against something, like from like years ago, and basically it becomes a whole like political thing, but she's really good at it, and that's the reason why I loved when Matt came in, because they could play off of that really well. I don't know if I genuinely wish that Matt was in it sooner, and then Daredevil came into it later, so there was more of a build up of Daredevil showing, but Matt was always in it. Or even if Matt was just part of the company, or like the offshoot company, whatever it was. I'm not gonna lie, the twerking thing, I did just find it funny, because I knew how many people it was going to piss off for like the wrong reasons, and how many people it was going to piss off for the right reasons. But I am also I'm a full shill for big girls, so the moment I saw that, I was like, yeah, cool, I'm down. Like, I'm fine with this. I can watch this on loop.
I'm with you on this.
Yeah, exactly. But I do have a lot of love for a lot of the actors, and like a lot of the actresses who did She-Hulk's body double stuff come from my agency, so I know what the kind of stuff they went through to do that, to like do it. And the show never tried to be anything it wasn't, which I kind of appreciate. It's that they knew from the get-go, we want to make this kind of stupid show. And I like the fact that they didn't shy away from it, especially with the finale, where I know obviously I can understand why people were disappointed that a fight didn't happen between Abomination and Hulk, or at least a longer one didn't happen. But I do kind of like the fact that Jen's just sitting there and she's like, okay, right, we're not doing that, we're not doing that, we're not doing that, and then it's just like not resolved, but it never really happened in the first place.
Yeah, I really appreciated the fact that it wasn't just another big CGI boss battle.
Yeah,
me too. See, this is the thing I was so hopeful about there. I thought she's now changed this, and I thought something really clever was about to happen, and I was really excited. And I don't mind if the resolution was not a fight. I'm very, very cool with that. But then what was it? Because it just
That's
everything
exactly.
They put
exactly.
stakes. Yeah.
Yeah.
They put stakes
Like,
into the show, which
yeah,
didn't need
it's
stakes.
Yeah.
I get it, and the joke, the premise around it was brilliant. I love the fact that Jeb was going, no, I'm not happy with this. It's my show. We're gonna do it the way that I want to do it. It just felt that there wasn't really like let's call it a traditional ending. It just kind of went, okay, well, Abomination's back in jail. Great, fine, okay, cool. But what were the consequences of changing it the way that she changed it, or show me something? It just kind of went, that's it, job done, final, and
examples.
It didn't sit with me. That's
same. Yeah, it was just that I was literally on the verge of it being like a Loki ending. It was like, you're about to win it for me.
Yeah.
But the end of the first Doctor Strange, the I've come to bargain thing, where it wasn't an all-out fight. Yes, there was a fight that happened before it, but that resolution was a really cool, different way of ending it. Another one in the one, I know that there are not a lot of fans of the WandaVision finale, but at least in the Vision versus Vision, it was resolved in a conversation and a discussion on who is the real Vision and why. And does that mean that you should follow these? It was, and then at the end, the guy just left. Like, I was hoping for something smart, maybe even lawyery, like maybe
like she'd go up against Kevin in like a law.
Exactly.
I would have totally accepted.
Right? Yeah. Imagine if they magically ended up in the courtroom and then she's trying to win this defamation suit, like that, and that
I would have accepted that. That would, in my eyes, that to me sounds like at least a better ending than the one that.
Because it already was super crazy and bonkers to the point where, like, if they had then cut to a law room where Jen is like going up against Kevin and Kevin's just like a floating thing.
Exactly.
Like, I think everyone would have been like, this is stupid, but at least they're kind of staying true to the
exactly.
Well, I do feel
stakes. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, just there would at least been stakes resolved. So it's like there is still the issue that her name has been defiled, but here is a way that is about to be resolved, and she's doing it as herself. And she's defending She-Hulk as well. It's like, it would have been really nice to kind of see it. Sorry,
one thing that I did like was, like, when I say like, I don't mean I actually like the concept of it, but what I mean is like the concept of the biggest stake that happened to Jen in this was something that is very sincerely a genuine thing that women deal with, which is the whole like revenge porn leaking stuff.
Yeah.
Of like, that's the biggest impact to the happened to her. And I like the fact that as a woman who is now super strong and can destroy everything, cool, she didn't keep her cool when everyone thought it was dangerous stuff. And I'm like, I know so many people who would act the exact same way if they had the powers. To the point where I almost wanted there to be a joke of just like, can we just cut to black for a second? And then you hear like a crunch and you come back and the dude is like crippled on the floor. In the sense of like, just that whole kind of like that fantasy of this is the guy that really fucked you. And I don't like the fact that he was just kind of sent away to prison.
Like,
I kind of wish that something like I don't know, like something bad had happened to him personally.
That guy.
But you see that's kind of the thing, and I would have loved for that, even if it was just that particular beat of the storyline to then continue through, to give her something to win the case, as it were. And it still could have led to all of the crazy silliness that we saw, and then breaking through the fourth wall, speaking to Kevin. It still could have all led to that, but it didn't feel like there was any real stakes.
It felt like it ended too quickly.
It did. It did. The episode needed, in my opinion, at least
a closure.
Another 10 minutes would have been something to just to tie it off a little bit more.
And this is one which had more episodes than the others. Like, I was hoping that, given that it was not the 6-episode thing that we've become accustomed to since after WandaVision, that it would have the chance to do that kind of thing. Just before we quickly move on, so where would you say your score is, Alex?
So as an MCU show, again, I probably put like a 5 or 6. In terms of my own entertainment, I probably put it at like a 7. But MCU, yeah, like, I'd say 6. I'd say 6. So I'd watch this before I'd watch Moon Knight or Miss Marvel.
Gotcha. Awesome.
Also, I hate the Scar reveal. It really fucking pissed me off how stupid that was, because that really felt like that genuinely felt like they went, oh shit, we actually did this. Scene, quick, make one.
Yeah, I feel that. It felt like the MCU doing their mandatory. We have to set up for something.
We've got the Young Avengers in every other Marvel property show.
Yeah,
we've got the twins. We've got Kamala. We've got Kate. We've got no one from Moon Knight, because we can't use anyone from Moon Knight because they're Persian. But now we've got Scar.
Oh man, it was like
they had like the animatic ready to go. And that was it. That's all they just did use that, and like they didn't have the finished projects, and they were like, "Shit, we've got to find out where Hulk was this whole time." We haven't got anything. We'll throw this thing in.
It genuinely felt like they had like the test footage of like, we need to do the motion capture on a kid and see if that works the same way. And then someone said,
really bad, right?
"Oh, we need something." It's
terrible.
It looked very strange and weird.
The hair was. Don't. Like, I saw it. I was like, "Oh my god, we got Scar." But then I was like, "Oh my god, why does he look like that?"
It's the last taste. Like I say, just like Ryan, I was excited when they were doing that 4-4 break. I genuinely was, but the taste that was left at the end was so bitter. Like, the very last thing we saw was literally that. Like, really? Why? I have a question. Okay, go on.
Sorry. Side note: the echo is not bad now that you're on your phone.
Yeah,
call,
I
so
agree.
Feel free to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
It might have just been like your iPad speakers. The one fourth wall break joke that I did quite like was when she's talking to Hulk and he's like, I'm a different person now, literally, and she's just like, ha. I'm like, cool. So we're acknowledging the fact that you just recast the guy. I did like that one. However, the one that I didn't like, ironically, is the one where she's like, when are we going to get the mutants? And then like thumbed up to the camera. Because I was like, yes, we know. We know that you know. We know that you know that we know that you want to do
sticking with us.
Admittedly, I really like that. But I think I liked that mainly because I really liked Tatiana and I thought the delivery was fantastic.
No, the delivery is perfect, but it's the Marvel thing of me being like, we know that you're aware that we're waiting for it. Like, you've already given it to us in Miss Marvel, which is like a throwaway line in that one almost. So like we want them now.
Yeah, and to be honest, the whole meta commentary in that whole conversation was really fun, right?
Yeah,
because
it was.
A lot of summaries of stuff about Marvel. It's actually the reason why I really disliked the way it ended, because that whole thing was so cool.
It was jarring. It was just so jarring.
Yeah, I was taken out of it. They succeeded at surprising me. I was just like, okay, here's another She-Hulk episode. Okay, here's another She-Hulk episode. Oh, Daredevil. And then the next one's like, whoa, what's going on? Right? And then so that's why I wish it resolved itself. Because then I would have taken that. I would have just been, yes, I enjoyed it.
I would have been so happy with it.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Just get that ending and remove Scar from the face of the earth.
Yeah, I'd like what's funny is the fact that he's so irrelevant to everything else. That him just being there, it just made me like, why? What was the actual reason for this?
Do you? My issue is I don't feel like they're going to explain it now.
No,
I think they're just going to want us just to carry on with the fact that he's here.
This is his son. He's here now. He's the new Hulk. I'm just like,
Isn't that Ryan's favorite when they don't explain the?
Absolutely. See, what they did was that there has to be a trade-off. There has to be. It's like Highlander. There has to be one. So what they did was they gave Riri a really good intro in the MCU. But they completely fucked Scar.
Yeah. No, I completely agree.
You think they've brought him in just to be sort of like the Young Avengers version of Hulk?
100%. Yeah. But that's the thing. We're just going to be expected to go, oh, they've got a Hulk now.
Yeah.
But so my thinking is, I don't know whether, because I know that Hulk as a character is still technically owned by Universal for independent movies, I believe.
Yeah.
So, but I don't think that Scar comes under the category because Scar is a completely separate Marvel character.
Sure.
So I think they're basically just going to be like, cool, we're just going to use this one for the Hulk stories we want to do until we get Hulk back. And that's the reason why She-Hulk works the way it works, because it's not a Hulk character. Sorry, it's not the character. It's a Hulk character under the Hulk umbrella, but it's a different Hulk character to use for a copyright purposes.
Sure.
See, this is why I think they should have gone with Amadeus Cho, like because of the whole way. Since Professor Hulk is Professor Hulk, then have an actual progression and lead to Amadeus Cho or something like that. I have a question for you all. Given the She-Hulk, right? How do you feel about Deadpool coming into the MCU? Because
scared.
Right. I was actually terrified beforehand. I was kind of terrified because I love Deadpool. So like I love him. I love all his references. I love the fourth wall breaking and everything. But I was happy because it wasn't a part of the MCU as well. The MCU be the serious thing, the stakes or whatever, and then Deadpool can make fun of stuff outside. It wasn't even making fun, not really in the bubble of X-Men, not really. I know that we got that little, door open thing, whatever, but we had a different remind me his name, metal dude.
Colossus.
Yeah. We had a different Colossus. We had a whole new mutant character and stuff. Like it made it so that it was outside enough so we can still take the X-Men stuff kind of seriously. And then he's doing his thing and it's funny, it's hilarious. I kind of wish that She-Hulk, like you were saying, I wish that She-Hulk, this was happening not in the MCU. You don't have to involve Wong. You don't have to involve this. You can involve the elements of it, like the magical elements and whatnot. But it's just reduced. I like her, and I want to see her in future, but I don't want her to reduce the
rest of the MCU. It's like a bar has for the MCU has been lowered with her being in it, in the sense of it's hard to imagine this character existing with these characters in these stories that are being told.
Exactly.
Like obviously, I know we're going to go into movies next week, but go if you went straight from She-Hulk to watching Wakanda Forever, you're going to have the biggest emotional whiplash you've ever had. But I also think that I don't know whether or not with Deadpool, I don't know what their plan is, obviously, but obviously I'm assuming everyone has seen the Ryan Reynolds promo that he did. Yeah. So that whole concept to me is fine. I think it's really great. So obviously they're keeping some elements of Foxiverse in there, but doing it new. I think that with She-Hulk and the fourth wall breaks, some jokes hitting, some jokes not, but overall being quite good in the way they've approached it in terms of going balls to the wall with it. If that wasn't followed up for me by watching Werewolf by Night, I'd be more scared for Deadpool. But I think Werewolf by Night showed me that Marvel aren't scared to do that kind of violence. Sure, it's black and white, so they can get away with it. But if they can find a balance between mixing elements of those two together, I think we can have a very solid Deadpool, in my opinion.
So I think with Deadpool 3, I still think they're going to keep it with predominantly what they've been doing with the previous two movies.
Yeah.
And it's going to be at the end of that movie when he will fully integrate the MCU. That's where I think it's going to come on. Because what I don't want them to do is to do just silly humor with Deadpool. I want to do it like the smart humor that the fourth wall breaking, like they've done in the previous two movies. That's what I want. Just with the added bonus of Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. I don't think they need to mess with the concept too much. All we're getting now is just another super serious, surly bastard. We had Cable this time round, and last time round. Now we're going to get Wolverine, which is what we want to see.
I was thinking about the Axis crossover in the comics, and where things were really dire. They're fighting Onslaught, Red Skull kind of thing, And that, like, Iron Man is on his last legs. Everyone else is pretty much like, Iron Man's on his last legs. And the people that come in are the anti-heroes and the villains to help the day. Magneto, Doom, and all this stuff. And Deadpool comes in as well. It's helping Iron Man. And he's doing his jokes and stuff. Iron Man is irritated by it. It worked. It didn't. The way that they interacted, the stakes were still high. Things are still going to go wrong, and he can make. And I felt like it was a good balance, a good level. If he just rewrote, for example, the thing with Onslaught, it's like, okay, no, I don't want Red Skull Onslaught here. I just result. It would have been. That's the sort of thing I don't want.
Yeah,
you know, you can be aware without it going too much. That's why I was asking the question, see what you guys thought about kind of Deadpool in this.
I feel they keep it at least similar to the first two Deadpools. I think they're onto a winner. That's what people have been asking for. I think Hugh Jackman on screen together, a lot of violence, a lot of fourth wall breaking, or enough fourth wall breaking, and a bit of smart comedy, and I think they're onto a winner.
I think Disney are enough of a company to understand the fact that you've got two people who everyone has been wanting to see for years. But you add that to the fact that both Deadpool movies did really well financially. The Logan movie is, I think, the highest or one of the highest grossing and best received X-Men movies come out since like the first one. And then on top of that, you've got the concept of people are aware, even if they don't know anything about film and TV, people are aware that Disney have bought Marvel, and there's a lot of jokes you can make with that, and the fact that Fox has come with that and all that kind of stuff. It really is handed to them on a silver platter.
But like, as far as going forward to whatever the next big end game is going to be, can you see Deadpool and She-Hulk in a big, scene with other characters from the MCU in it? Would they have to not have the fourth wall breaks and just have them as regular characters who still be funny?
This is what I touched on earlier, that they've almost got to be a separate character in the movies going forward, so they could do what they want to do in their own like solo adventures, if you will, or in their own TV shows. But when it comes to the big ultimate team up movies, that's when they're going to probably have to be a little bit more serious, or at least slightly different from what they are in their own solo film TV show.
I think they can still be funny, just not have the fourth wall breaks.
Exactly.
This is going to be a really weird comparison, but in the Lion King movies, Timon and Pumbaa, obviously the comic relief, but then they went and did Lion King 1.5, whatever it was, which was like a Timon and Pumbaa focused fourth wall breaking thing. And I think that's probably what they would do if they were going to do anything like that, where they would be around and still be useful or be just seen to be having a place. But the fourth wall metaverse stuff like that would probably be a completely. So effectively, it would be like Endgame from the perspective of Deadpool would be its own like I Am Groot series of just like here's a little stupid thing that we kind of did on the sideline. I doubt they'd do anything fourth wall breaking with the characters.
There's a level of fourth wall breaking that's like fully acceptable. Like Deadpool's fourth wall breaks in his own movies are fully acceptable to be in the MCU.
Yes, yeah.
Like that because he still abides by the laws and physics of the universe.
Yes.
Yeah.
He just makes fourth wall references.
It just makes commentary on it.
Yeah. Whereas She-Hulk had those same powers up until the finale. Yeah. And then they made her capable of breaking time and space and all of reality.
She literally broke the fourth wall.
Yeah. She shattered it.
That power is like far too much for the MCU moving forward. She like that character with those abilities cannot exist in any other MCU.
Yeah, I can't remember or not, but did Kevin say like you can't do this anymore?
Yeah. He alluded to it basically. Yeah.
I think if there was something similar to this is gonna sound really weird, but if it was something similar to like in Neverending Story when Atreus gets like just zapped, I think it'd be funny if he did something like, well, you can't do this anymore, and there was like a very obvious like, we're taking this very specific power away from you.
Yeah.
Going forward, like this joke works once, we can't do it again. Because obviously, I mean, if they do like a She-Hulk 2, they can't make the same joke again. Or if they did, they could only go with that joke going forward. You know, like She-Hulk in our world watching the MCU.
Yeah.
I can guarantee you that one of the first lines, like if they do a She-Hulk 2 or the next thing that she's in, the first conflict she comes up against, there will be a line, a fourth wall break line where she says to the audience, "Oh well, it'd be convenient if I had that power that I had in my series."
Yeah. But then that's a perfectly acceptable fourth wall break that you would come to expect. Yeah.
But you're looking at are you describing it as if this is like an actual power that she's got, like somebody having telepathy or whatever kind of thing, that this is an actual thing that She-Hulk can do? Or are you saying that it's outside of the realms of the MCU and it's something that her character can do, but not? I don't know how to explain this. That She-Hulk doesn't have a separate power to break out the fourth wall, but because it's so popular in the comic and they decided to put it in there, it's almost like the story always would have gone the way that it went, Jen's way, but we're given the fourth wall thing to show how she got there, rather than it being the ability to rewrite the ending. You know what I mean?
So obviously the best example here is to connect to Deadpool. Deadpool's biggest fourth wall break is when he's in the laundrette and talks to the audience, and it's like a fourth wall within a fourth wall break. That's like 16 walls, whatever the joke is.
Yeah.
And then the other joke, fourth wall, that we have in terms of the Deadpool movies is the opening credits having like just some guy or big metal man or like written down, but that isn't what Deadpool is doing. That's the Deadpool movie itself. What Ryan's getting at is the fact that like Jen literally broke the Disney Plus wall, which is the connection we have as an audience to her and our reality. So it's like that's an actual thing that she can do. It's like quite literally breaking into our reality.
Yeah, she has been functionally shown to be able to transcend dimensions in the real world.
Literally. And we thought that Doctor Strange was the multiversal madness. It was actually secretly She-Hulk turning at law.
This is an actual problem because these are her powers now.
As shown in the show, her power is the ability to break into the real world. Yeah,
I mean, one of the hopes that I had. Well, the thing is, I understand the way you're thinking, Paul. But I said, if you think about any situation that she has, she can always break out of it. Because he transcends what's happened. She's kind of like Kang, and this is why part of me, one of the clever endings I would have accepted is if this fourth wall that she broke into was some kind of representation in the quantum realm of like some kind of TVA thing. I would have just give me anything.
Or like a Matrix and a Matrix.
Yes.
I'm just going to go on record here to say that I don't agree with what you guys are saying. I'm very, very aware that I'm probably in a tiny minority, and also aware that I'm probably completely wrong. But I don't agree that this is a power that she has. I don't agree this is a power that she can wield, or she subconsciously or purposefully wielded. I think it's more.
It's context.
Yeah,
it is context within her own show, and then that translating into the movies, because
this is exactly it.
Yeah,
so
that context won't translate at all into the main MCU movies.
And this is the weird thing about it as well, is the fact that this is also why, and from the very first Loki, I said this, I fucking hate the concept of variance and multi because they're not consistent with it. But effectively, what She-Hulk broke out of and into is a multiversal variant version of our actual world. If she met with Kevin Feige, the man, we'd know it was our universe. Yeah. But it was Kevin, the fucking the GLaDOS
Machine.
robot man.
Yeah.
So we know that it's not our exact universe because there is an element of stupidity that comes with that version. So that whole concept of like she can break dimensional effectively she can do what America Chavez does, is where she can literally break through time and space and different multiversal stuff.
Yeah,
but
also
it's
have it
even
affect
more.
her world.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. That's what I mean. In like the rules they're setting, like it's great for a joke, and obviously we're talking about it and we're laughing at it and stuff. But when you really ask the questions, you do kind of go, wait. So you guys are setting up Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars.
Exactly.
What is it that She-Hulk can't do to just come in and say, no, Kang, you're a baby now?
Because there's going to be someone. There's going to be someone that asks that question. Why can't Jen just break down the fourth wall again, go into Disney Plus or whatever, and then meet with Kevin again and change it? Yeah.
This is and so you see, I like. I enjoyed the aspects of Loki that was to do with this whole classification of multiverses as timelines and thingy, right? We're all theorizing about it. It becomes meaningless with this ability that we've just seen. Everything becomes meaningless. We almost need to ignore that this show exists. Otherwise, there's no enjoyment of anything.
Side note, Jen gets way too powerful. Someone from the TVA comes along and prunes her.
Oh my god!
And then just completely deletes that time.
No, because when the
TVA
TVA
show, comic, if this was in the comics, the TVA would absolutely come along and say you can't be doing this kind of thing, and it would just be just you don't care about it. It's just in the comics.
Yeah, exactly. But she could go into the writer's room and say the TVA don't show up.
Yes.
This is my point. My point. It would work okay in the comics because it's the comics, and at the end of the day, you can do anything in comics. People can come back all the time. In the movies, you have to have some semblance of reality. Otherwise, nobody can watch this stuff anymore because it's ridiculous. So I am doubling down with my possible thought that she doesn't possess this power. This is a thing that happened within the confines of her show, but she didn't make the conscious decision to use a superpower that let her do this. It was like, it's almost just a thing that she's, oh god, I don't know how to explain that. I need somebody smarter than me.
It's not an ability. It's not an ability that she has. It's just that she was able to do it within the context of her own show.
Within the context of the MCU.
Say she was able to do it, that's still giving her an ability, and I don't think she has that ability.
Well, but moving forwards, they can just say that the writers, after she left the room, then scribbled her out that bit on her character.
Exactly. That's
which is exactly what they're going to do.
This is the thing. But with all this, I totally understand what you mean, and the reason I hate it is because I hate the concept of it as opposed to...
Paul isn't wrong. It's just the problem is stupid.
The thing is, she consciously decided it wasn't even so much she accidentally got there. She said, I don't like this. What's going on? Decided to step out
to bring up the Disney Plus thing. Exactly.
And it wasn't even that she just said I can only do this because it's my own show. She literally freaking saw Shang-Chi's show.
She looked exactly.
She saw someone else's show. She literally jumped into assembling. I forgot what they call it now.
Assembled.
And she was in Marvel's studios apparently. Now, if they tried to make it in universe, it could work. If they did something quantum, whatever crap, they could make it work. But as far as the way that they've shown to us, she has access to the person who writes. She's talking about Iron Man. She's talking about everything. She's talking about so many other movie-level MCU characters, right? She's freaking winking about X-Men, which no one in the MCU knows about besides, Kamala's friend and whatever. That drives me nuts.
For all extensive purposes, Wanda should never have been going after America Chavez. She should have immediately been going after Jennifer Walters. Now that's a movie that I would fucking watch. But no, it's Jen quite literally has plot armor now.
Yeah. Yes.
Like
It's
she
definition.
at the moment she is 100% saved by the writers.
Yeah. That is the definition of plot armor. Wait, his son Frenica, his son felt shoehorned in by the producer saying, "Hey, make sure it connects to something with Future Brother." Oh, okay, they're talking about Scar.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
The light's about 20 minutes behind.
That was another thing. That was another thing of throwing something at a wall and hoping it sticks.
Yeah.
And it really didn't, because the internet said, what the fuck is this?
No,
like people who don't even know Scar are like, what is this?
Yeah.
And he looked awful. He the CGI just genuinely looked shit. It looked really bad. I'm just like, what is this?
I got over actually very, very quickly. I know a lot of people pointed out the CGI for She-Hulk. I got over that in episode 1 because I kind of had this expectation.
You just accept it.
TV show, right? Yeah. It's like, use a budget. That's fine. I'll get over it. And her acting is great. The Scar one actually scarred me. Like I felt that.
It wasn't so much the CGI; it was the character design. Like,
yeah.
I didn't care about the badness of the CGI. It was just that it's weird. What the hell?
The thing is, if you don't know Scar and you look up Scar, you're going to see that's not the character. If you do know Scar, that's not Scar as you know. And Scar's not a very complicated design. It's like it's like the emo grunge hot boy from from Planet Metal kind of thing. It's like obviously like Boss Logic did a edit of it, and I'm like, that's literally just all you've done is given him just like the Crow hairstyle, and it's fine.
It's like a Marvel logo that's green.
It's all very, very weird. The concept as well with the Taylor as well, like the actual MCU Taylor.
I wanted to get back to that. Yeah,
it's what I find funny is that obviously it's introduced here. Now I don't know, I can't remember well enough if they established that everyone goes to him or if it's just like undercut people. Because I'm thinking, obviously, we know that Stark makes his own suits, but then obviously Captain America from the first Avenger his is like a military suit, which then has is like kind of painted and colored and all that kind of stuff. But then his stealth suit, I always assumed was like custom made by Shield, whatever. But then his Avengers suit, I was like, that's a pretty shoddy suit. Was that done by the tailor? Because like it's really kind of bright and vibrant colors.
So I didn't get a chance to mention before. I hate the idea of this tailor so much.
You manifested it.
Yeah, exactly.
You manifested it, mate. This is
there is no like.
This was a nod to you.
Yeah.
And the funny thing, and it's annoying that it's me because my whole scene, the good and everything, did not apply here in the slightest. I truly despised it. The moment when they first mentioned it, I was hoping that it was just going to be a joke, just for certain people. Like it's someone who is able to make this thing. Maybe he's talented and can make it, but it's just for like these unknowns that Ryan loves with no origins. Like we're just not the one also making it for freaking Daredevil.
That's exactly
really ticked me off.
Because in the Netflix series, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah,
the guy who is the stilt man, like his character, he makes Daredevil's dark red suit.
That's right.
So I assumed he'd make his next one.
Yeah.
But also in terms of this story, him making suits isn't a thing that's necessary apart from the Rivet Man.
Yeah.
Because the only reason why she goes to him initially also is to get a dress. Or like the dress is an offshoot for it. Yeah. So the whole concept of him making Daredevil's suit and also making it yellow and red, which is fine because obviously that harkens.
Yeah, red.
I understand that it's the comics, it's a new look, it's whatever.
Yeah. I saw the red and yellow just as again treated it as a fourth wall break. Shout back to the original look in the comics. That's all I treated that as. I don't legitimately think we'll get that in the MCU Daredevil. I think they will. They'll make the choice, and they'll either go to black and red or black or
well, we know that he's going black and red for Echo because that's already being confirmed.
I can't wait to see that.
You know what? But the thing is, I don't even mind that they went there. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the color scheme, but I don't even. The dude is blind. I don't even mind that they that they went for that. It's more the idea of the tailor who's doing like it seems for someone who is doing what he's doing, it seems so not secret. Like two lawyers who just like
he's also walking in broad daylight in a yellow and red suit without his shoes on. And that was again, I get the joke, walk of shame, hilarious, funny, ha. But I'm sorry, Matt Murdock could have just walked out in just like, do you know, I think it would have been funnier if Matt Murdock had walked out and done the walk of shame in like Jen's clothes. or like, you know, basically he's just like, again, like if you're having a walk of shame, you haven't got anything, you just get whatever's there. And that would have been funnier than seeing Daredevil, who I think we all can admit is a character that we have respected in terms of the way that he's been handled up until maybe this season for a lot of people. But we all respect Murdock on the way that he's done in MCU. So seeing him do that was like a ha, and then afterwards you go, oh wait, no, that's a canonical thing now.
Did he have the helmet on when he?
Yes, he had the helmet on.
Yeah,
he had the helmet on. Yeah.
They did. I think the other. I'm trying as much as I can to divorce myself from the Daredevil that I love on Netflix.
Yeah.
But the origin of how he came to even do so, and it made sense. The stuff he was doing for Wilson Fisk, the fact that he was in trouble with the law, and he's now trying to help Daredevil for the sake of like it was really nice progression, and he wasn't just this is what I do.
Yeah.
He's kind of fallen into this. And it's still a knife edge because Fisk can still get to him and all that stuff. But at the very least, he could go to someone else to get his suit, not someone who is essentially a parody, a cartoon, who anyone can seemingly get to. It just for me took it out. It would have been fine if it was just for lesser character, like any old person. Oh, I found I got powers. Okay, there's this person I know. Fine, do that. But in terms of the general, this is the person who makes all these suits. Hell no.
Yeah, I mean, I have a feeling, again, this is just in my brain and obviously could be completely wrong, could be different, but that it was almost that he was coming to LA, he didn't bring his suit with him for whatever reason.
So he needed one.
He knows that there's a tailor who does superhero suits, but that tailor doesn't do it for the MCU, he does it for LA superheroes and supervillains, and that's literally all he does. He's aware that there's this new crop of superheroes and villains coming out, and he has the skills to make them costumes. So he makes it for people like Leapfrog and for the other characters and stuff like that. So it was him putting his own flair.
Sorry, go ahead.
On Daredevil's suit. Sorry, it was him sort of like putting his own flair on Daredevil suits rather than just making it the way he did. The fact that Matt never. It's never. There's that one line about it being yellow and red, and then it's never brought up again.
Yeah,
and it's silly, but obviously it works in the show to a certain extent.
Also, the concept of being yellow and red, he acknowledges is a design flaw of the designer, not his own choice, which makes sense. But that does go into the whole concept that Ryan was talking about of all of these superheroes popping up from nowhere and people just being accepting of it. I think if you take into the mindset of like this is just LA, which let's be real, these people do exist in LA as it is now. Like people who think that they can do superhero things, like the concept of Porcupine. That's not too far off from what you can imagine someone in LA actually coming up with and doing. You know, like it's kind of bonkers. Porcupine was on my. I'm sorry, Porcupine, the Matador, and the Bull guy were one of my favorite fucking
fantastic things. Yeah,
like I really did like those episodes of just like these dudes just basically just having rehabilitation.
I couldn't find myself laughing. It was just I literally found myself just plodding along, just like, okay, so when we get past this, maybe there'll be something later. The cartoon, I don't mind cartoon characters as long as they make me laugh. The Mask makes me laugh, right? The Mask, he goes all out. He's a freaking Looney Tune, and he does all the things that make me laugh, as opposed to just kind of trying to be sort of parody, kind of like, hey, I need to go one way or the other. And if they're going that way of the Looney Tune, don't involve Marvel characters, MCU characters. At least it was those things made it really hard.
You see that's kind of the point though, because a lot of the context around She-Hulk stories is dealing with all of these D-list, Z-list you know, heroes and villains, and certainly from the West Coast, from LA, that it's all batshit bananas out there, which is why the comic works so well. And I love seeing the on-screen adaptions of some of those Z-list characters. I was like, I know that guy. I know that guy. Yeah.
Frogman was cool. I honestly,
was cool.
But you see, the way that episode was written for me seems different to the others. There was an actual legal thing to cover, and
they knew they had a story within that to do.
That's the thing.
Within there.
Even
the cartoon nature of Frogman was explained within that story. The thing about his father, what he's living up to. It actually made some. It was one of those examples of people being crazy not for the sake of being crazy. It's like it actually worked in the story. So I was fine with Frogman being the way he was, given he seemed to have some kind of mental issues, some daddy issues, and things like that. Whereas the magician who is doing magic tricks in court and no one seems to care, and the judge is even like, "Oh, that's fun." I know no judge who would react that way, and it would have been funnier for me if they're acting in this way, and the judge is like, "Get out." That would actually be funnier for me. Everyone acting in character and making the situation funny, sort of thing. You mentioned the one thing before, which is true. Like he, in Shang-Chi, there was that part. I give him a buy because of a couple of things. One, they were showing they were trying to play on a stereotype, an Asian stereotype thing of karaoke. But apparently he'd had some to drink, and which is why I'm fine with the Madison character, because he'd had stuff to drink. But the other stuff happening around her and stuff is just kind of like, okay, we're just here to try and do something silly.
I mean, it all existed to name drop. Well, not quite name drop Mephisto, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which I did appreciate. I will say, like that whole, given what happened before, I did appreciate the whole Mephisto links. It was such a. It's in a way, I would say the fact that we're having this conversation, like she did break us. I think it was the point. I feel like it was the point was to break us in some way.
Hey, it's like I said, I was expecting so little going in that what they gave me was still entertaining enough for it to get something from me. Like I can genuinely say that I watched Moon Knight, and like similarly to Mark, I blacked out and I woke up and I don't remember how I got to the end of the episode.
That's good. I like that. So I'm just looking at everyone's rankings for stuff. I've missed one. Thomas Hawkeye. Where was that? Oh, that was 7.
I don't think Phase 4 has been great at all, which is very disappointing.
A lot of it is very watch once and okay, cool, you can move on.
Yeah. And that's the TV shows.
Yeah. And well, a lot of the TV shows, if I'm going to be brutally honest, I've seen them now. I don't necessarily have to go back to them again. WandaVision, I will probably give another go at some point because it was generally a good series. Hawkeye is probably another one. But apart from that, I may go back to Miss Marvel because I enjoyed aspects of it. But
you can find the best bits on YouTube now.
Exactly, and that's it. And I would be perfectly happy with that.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, I mean, we'll do possibly next week, maybe the week after. We'll do the movies for Phase 4.
Are we covering Werewolf by Night in TV or in movies?
Or specials. Actually, do you know what? It might be good to do Werewolf by Night when Guardians Holiday comes out.
Yeah.
Just as specials.
Yeah. It also gives me time to watch it.
Have you not watched Werewolf by Night yet?
I haven't. I need
you need to get on that.
It's like it's the best thing in Phase 4 so far.
Actually, yeah.
I don't know. I have a different favorite. But I say that without having seen Werewolf by Night, so I have to reserve that. But I was just looking at the movies versus the TV shows, and although we've said what we've said about the about the Phase 4. Movie wise, I find on proportion, I've been okay. Like I can say that
we're gonna have some disagreements.
I was gonna say we're gonna have some big disagreements on that one.
Yeah. No, absolutely. But I mean, there have been seven movies,
and 3 of them are watchable.
Yeah, and 2 of those are actually good.
Yes, exactly.
I got 4. I got 4 for me. I got 4 that I truly enjoyed. Two which were excellent for me, and 2 which I enjoyed. Oh, sorry, no. Actually, no. I forget. No, sorry. 3, 2 which are excellent, 1 which is very, very good, 2 which I enjoyed, and then the others. So, yeah.
I will say of the 7 movies that have come out in the last 2 years, 3 of them are good, 2 of them are decent. 1 of those is a Marvel movie.
Yeah, I know the one. Yeah.
Like the other one isn't even a Marvel property.
Yeah. But the reason I mentioned that is in comparison to the Disney Plus shows, I found myself in a better proportion there than the TV shows.
Sure.
I mean, so perhaps, but that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah,
so,
I think I'm actually sort of the opposite on that.
Oh, really? That would be cool to see.
There are 4 movies out of the 7 that came out that are absolute dog shit to me.
Yeah.
I can. I know that one. That one. This one probably. And then
I was going to say we could probably guess Ryan's. Yeah.
I know the 4 because I think I know 2 of the 4 which I enjoy, which he doesn't. I know.
There's definitely 2 which are going to be very divisive for everyone.
Yeah.
Like everyone's going to have a different opinion on them.
Yeah. So to finish this one off, it's been a good one. I'll just read off everyone's rankings of the of the Disney Plus shows. So we'll start with Paul. Actually, yeah, we'll read this off and then we'll do like overall rankings from all of us. So starting with Paul, his lowest is and then, Moon Knight just after that, and then we have Ms. Marvel, and then Loki, and then his top 3: Falcon, Falcon Soldier, WandaVision, and Hawkeye. So those are your top. For Alex, last place is everyone 1, 2, 3.
What?
Ms. Marvel coming in next, then Hawkeye, Moon Knight, then top 3: Falcon Winter Soldier, Loki, and WandaVision.
I would also like to say that even though they're the same numbers, like Hawkeye is definitely more watchable for me than Moon Knight.
I know what you mean. Sometimes, like the way that we're rating them is not exactly even. Is it because they're good but entertaining? It's like what Ryan was saying about She-Hulk.
Yeah,
he's entertained by it, and you can't actually kind of give a real qualifier most times to why you enjoy something.
Yeah, I mean, this is why numerical rankings suck.
Yeah.
3 paragraphs at least.
To be completely honest, having talked about it again and having gone through all of them and stuff, I would probably put one. I think I put WandaVision at 8, right? WandaVision was your top.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. In terms of your score, you gave it.
I think that was an 8.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, I think I might actually put that to a 9, considering everything else. Because I would happily rewatch WandaVision a million times over.
Yeah. I definitely have. Ryan's. So Ms. Marvel is NA. It's not applicable. So
DNF did not finish.
Barely started.
Right, it seems like I had the best viewing experience. Like,
it's true.
You watched the 2 first episodes of the
last
finale.
10 minutes.
You watched it as a movie, which is exactly what we wanted to do.
Yeah. So your bottom is What If. Next, Falcon Winter Soldier. Surprise at that. Next after that, Moon Knight. And then you kind of have in joint second to fourth, Loki, Hawkeye, and She-Hulk.
Yeah.
And then you've got WandaVision.
Yeah.
Out on top. For Tom, we've got What If at the bottom, Quelle Surprise. Then we've got She-Hulk and Falcon Winter Soldier, about the same. And then you've got WandaVision. For Alex, Ms. Marvel, Loki, Hawkeye, and She-Hulk. And then you've got WandaVision. Out on top. For Tom, we've got What If at the bottom, Quelle Surprise. And then you got actually all in joint second place. You've got Moon Knight, Ms. Marvel, Loki, and Hawkeye. And
that's only because like there were parts of it I found enjoyable.
Yeah.
You know, there were aspects of the shows that I could genuinely get on with. As a whole,
that's I know what you mean. My Mood Knight will seem really high, but that's because the things that I wanted it to be was present at some point. I really enjoyed it, and and then mine bottom place. What If? After that, the She-Hulk that broke me. Then we've got Hawkeye, and then joint. I've got Loki and Falcon Winter Soldier. That surprises me a bit. So second and third for me, joint Ms. Marvel and Moon Knight for same reasons that that Tom said, and then WandaVision clear out on top. So yeah, and
what's nice about this is the fact that like yes, we've got rankings, but in terms of like from first to second, it's not like a 9 to an 8. It's like a 9-8 to a 5-6. So there's a very big drop.
Yeah. It's really looking at this is really interesting because most of our second to last or even third to last are ones that we're not really kind of interested in anymore. It's just the clear out and out.
I would like to recommend that when What If season 2 comes out, we all watch it live and we get absolutely shit faced beforehand. It's the only way we're going to be able to.
I would love that.
It's the only way we're going to get through it.
I would enjoy it more.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Are we actually also getting a standalone zombie series as well?
Yes.
Apparently.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will.
Apparently, is going to go off of the zombie What If story. That's what I've heard. Is that it's still like within that thing, which I think is stupid.
I will riot. I will absolutely riot. I can't.
I've already gone into. If anyone wants to know my thoughts on that, you can look on the Instagram live video. But that was a fun discussion. And I especially applaud Paul's pointing out of certain aspects that can actually work in some of the arguments that we were giving. So yeah.
If we're doing movies next week, that's 7 movies. That's 7 days before next week.
I am not rewatching 4 of those movies.
I was gonna say we might. I'm me personally. I'm gonna have to sit through these movies because this is like 2 years old and I haven't watched them since. I will probably have to watch through it. The one that I'm not looking forward to is fucking Eternals. So
I knew you were gonna say that.
Where I have to like I've got.
You can watch the best bits. It'll be about 3 minutes.
I'll put it on the background once I'm having a shit. It'll be as entertaining.
I'm gonna be the Lone Ranger again for
Yuga Christ is coming out in full effect on that one.
Yeah, I'm the only one. I'm the only defender of Eternals.
I feel like I have an uphill struggle in facing me for Doctor Strange, though. I feel like
you were in the minority in the group.
I'm super harsh on Doctor Strange because I feel like it was an absolute shit show. But I know that I'm in the minority on that.
But that's fair though.
That's where the chat's going to come in.
Yeah. It's one of those that there are some movies which I like, but I can fully understand why other people probably
100%.
You're right. Yeah, and that's one of them. And the other is Eternals, where I fully get people won't watch it, but I also know that there'll be a lot of people who really do like it. It's going to be one of those divisive ones.
Yeah.
And then there are the non-divisive ones. There are the very non-divisive ones, which is going to be really interesting to see.
There are movies that I'm not crazy about, but when I watch them again, now that I know what I don't like about them, I can enjoy them for the good stuff.
Yeah.
There are other movies which I don't like, and then when I watch them again, I find more and more stuff that I don't like about them. And I keep watching it, and I'm just like more and more stuff I don't like about it, and then
I'm not gonna lie. I'm kind of looking forward to watching Shang-Chi again because I genuinely haven't watched that since it came out in the cinema. Like I've watched like the fight scenes on YouTube when they came out, but I haven't actually watched the movie its entirety.
No, neither have I.
Yeah, I feel like I'm going to enjoy it more the second.
Yeah, exactly.
I enjoyed it the first time round.
I've only watched it once on Disney Plus after the cinema experience, and I absolutely loved it. I I remember why I loved it so much. It's and ironically enough, it's not one that I will kind of watch frequently. It's just I almost want to keep it special. I really love it. Right?
I really just don't have any life at all because I've seen
Say again?
I said I've seen every single one of them at least 3 times.
Oh, really?
Oh.
Yeah.
I'd love.
How do you stomach that?
That's that when you think about it,
how do you not just feel violently ill?
That's collectively like a short shift, which is like 6 to 7 hours of watching nothing but the Eternals.
That's good score as well.
Oh, I'm gonna get really, really violated when we talk about Eternals. Oh my word! You guys are gonna...
I deleted all my notes from when we did the previous live. I'm gonna have to go back and watch the old live and see.
I deleted the part of my brain that remembered anything. So
watch it again, have fresh views, see what you think.
But my old views were so entertaining.
Imagine if we come back next week and we're like, you know what?
Yeah,
post-COVID,
it actually wasn't bad.
Eternals actually has got a lot of poignant messages to make.
Character development was second to none.
I'll be sitting there like, I feel like I'm like
the best villain ever. I'm so glad that he made a point.
Damn right.
Cool.
Wakanda Forever had nothing to say.
I'm basically going to be Paul with Marvel Zombies when it comes to Eternal. Basically,
no, because Marvel Zombies has some redeeming qualities.
Oh, it's already started.
Save it.
Right, guys, this has been really fun. I really
I missed this.
Yeah, this is just incredible. And thanks for joining us, Tom, as well.
Oh, no
now
worries.
we can do this more regularly as well, as in having, because in this particular channel we can have more people on, so it's not kind of just restricted to 4 people and switching people in and out and stuff. So we'll call upon you for when we have more of these again.
Welcome to the Illuminati.
Thanks, man.
not the one that Ryan hates.
the good one. The good one. Yeah. I understand.
With the Illuminati.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, not 838. No, thanks for that. This is really good fun. I hope other people watching or that will watch will enjoy it as well. At least now we have somewhere we can save the memories and go back quite easily as well, right? Because who wants to sift through Instagram videos to find these chats? So this is really good, and looking forward to catching you guys next time. So
cool. Check it out.
Cheers. Thank you. See you guys.
Later.